Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM show. Today is the 8th day of January 2025. The 9th Parliament is in session, headed by the returning Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin. And Samuel Kojobrez and I are here to steer the affairs and the conversations for you this morning.
And it will be a day after the 9th President of Ghana was inaugurated, President John Mahama, to, go through his second term as president. And he said he's ready to ensure the state is rebuilt, resets Ghana, and move it from where it is to where we have to be. But he's calling on all of us because he says all of us are Ghanaians and we are the reason why he's back. So he demands your role, your duty to ensure that he is able to deliver on the promises. You know what? We're going to stay here to bring you all of those topical issues that came up out of that particular inauguration. But
first, just to give you an idea of what the lineup looks like, we'll start by serving you the AM news. And after that, we'll sit with Dr. Kwame Asasante. He's head of European Studies at the University of Ghana to help us review the newspapers. Then, of course, Mufta Nabela Abdullahi will serve you AM Sports. And like Brace was saying, everything in that speech yesterday, the inaugural speech, we'll be taking an incisive look at it. So you want to stay with us in this 4-hour package for the AM show.
It's also about you, so join us on social media with your comment and we will share it with the rest of our listeners. You know what? We'll also be talking about corruption with big signs of power crisis already staring government in the face. Less than 24 hours of taking office is the reset agenda in jeopardy. We find out as we discuss this and many other matters from the inauguration of the newly sworn-in president, John Mahama. Also, we'll take a look at Ghana's roads infrastructure and what is needed to enhance the sector, which is critical to the national development agenda.
Folks, welcome aboard the AM show. Of course, you're invited to join us across all social media platforms. We are Joy News on TV. Welcome aboard the AM show. We are starting now with the AM news. Do stay. This is the AM News. I'm Sweetie Abochi. Let's get straight into the details, starting with hundreds of business owners at the Abuabo Timber Market in Tamale are yet to come to terms with the devastating losses of their livelihoods after a fire swept through the market on Monday evening. The blaze destroyed shops and valuables worth thousands of Ghana cedis, leaving many businesses in jeopardy. Now, this is the second fire to hit the area within 12 hours on the same day. While the actual cause remains unclear, the Ghana National Fire Service has launched an investigation to uncover the cause of the disaster. There's more in this report.
The fire swept through the Abuabo Timber Market, destroying shops, a warehouse and properties worth thousands of Ghana cedis. This is the second fire outbreak in the town in a day. The Northern Regional Fire Service Commander, Assistant Officer Grade 2, Franklin Maseku, stated that an investigation is yet to be initiated to determine the exact cause of the fire.
Say the exact cause of the fire, because one, it is in the night, and two, we just finished firefighting, completed the firefighting. So tomorrow, God willing, we will commence our investigation, and when we are done with the investigations, we shall conclude what the cause. For the time, as at 9, now we are talking about 11. We have just gone past 11, almost 12 a.m. And so that is about 3 hours to 4 hours. But trust me, if we were having enough water, this shouldn't take us more than 2 hours to estimate.
Mr. Maseku also urged the general public to exercise caution and avoid situations that could lead to
Harmattan season. Harmattan is coupled with windy and harsh weather condition. And so for that matter, burning becomes very easy. Any little fire, trust me, can develop into a huge and bigger fire like we saw today. And so anything at all we use fire for, we should be attentive and stay until we are done with whatever we are using the fire for before we leave. We should also try as much as possible to off our electrical gadgets and unplug them when we are not in use. trucks, or we are not more using them. And then at our workplaces, we should do same. We should also try to avoid exposing sources of fires or heat, especially matches and lighters, exposing them to children. Please, a child has his or her limit. Children should not be playing with such things. They are fire hazards, and so we should avoid such practices.
Incident adds to the 45 fire outbreaks recorded between November 2024 and the first week of January 2025, which highlights the urgent need for increased vigilance and preventive measures.
In the coming days, the entire country may be plunged into total darkness as its fuel reserves run out, owing to the failure to settle outstanding debts. The energy sector is burdened with a debt of approximately $3.5 billion, leaving the country's fuel stock capable of supplying power for only up to 5 hours. Speaking to Joy News during the presidential inauguration in Accra, former ranking member on Energy Committee John Mahama warned that Ghana may face a severe energy crisis if the insufficient fuel situation is not addressed immediately. Yes, more.
I don't have bad news for you. Just today, the confirmation we are getting is that we have only 5 hours of fuel stock. If you look at heavy fuel oil and distillate fuel, we don't have up to 2 days. And so in 2 days' time, we are likely to run out of fuel. This administration has not ordered any fuel as we speak. And it takes on average 4 weeks for the fuel to arrive and 4 weeks for the fuel to be treated. And so we are in a very serious situation. At the transition, we brought this up. The outgoing administration assured us that they had procured some parcels of fuel. Today, right after President Mahama assumed office, and I served on the transition, my checks indicate that we do not have fuel that can cater for even 2 days. So clearly we have a major problem. And this is an incoming administration. Even if you order the fuel, like I'm telling you, it will take about 8 weeks. So we are in for real trouble.
Away from that, John Mahama is now officially the president of Ghana, having sworn the oath of office at the Black Star Square in the presence of thousands of witnesses. Now, the grand occasion had 21 heads of state and several distinguished international dignitaries. Outgoing President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and his Vice President Dr. Mamudu Bawumia gracefully handed over the baton of leadership. A sea of jubilant citizens also bore witness to the oath-taking, and President Mahama pledged to serve with integrity and foster inclusive development.
Of my fellow countrymen and women who joined long queues and waited in the sun for their turn to vote for me, you have my sincerest thanks for honoring me. My firm, immutable assurance is that your votes will matter in the work that I'll do to make a difference in the destiny of this dear nation of ours. Your courage to bring change will not go in vain. Our nation was born with much promise. That promise would seem hazy and in doubt now because of all that has happened in the past. But I urge you, my fellow countrymen, not to be sucked into a state of perpetual pessimism. For some time, our country has urgently needed leadership with an unwavering desire to get things done. I, with all humility, assent that I intend to be that leader with your cooperation and your help. As your next leader, I shall strive to exercise sound judgment and be able to make the right calls at the right time. I will have the humility and presence of mind to take responsibility for any challenges and be willing to act firmly and timeously to resolve the challenges that we face as a nation. Since the elections, I have read and heard the word hope used many times in relation to my presidency and what it should offer the citizens of Ghana. I intend to speak plainly and clearly to you today, and every time I address you subsequently, I intend to always tell you the truth.
President John Mahama over there, and he takes over as President of Ghana, continuing the long-standing tradition where presidents-elect wear traditional attire at the inauguration. But this time, his outfit carries more than just ceremonial significance. It conveys a message woven in Adinkra symbols. My colleague Emmanuel Jivenu explores the meaning behind these symbols to reinforce his inaugural address to the nation.
President John Mahama holds more than just the mantle of leadership. His agbada carries a message woven in Adinkra symbols, a fabric rich with tradition and purpose. His white garment adorned with kente stripes, symbolizing the unity and pride of the nation. Beyond the fabric, however, lies a deeper narrative, a silent sermon conveyed through the 4 Adinkra motifs placed in cardinal positions: Jinyame, Sankofa, Dwinemin, and Nyamidia. Each symbol tells a story. These symbols are an embodiment of values, cultural wisdom, and aspirations, mirroring his campaign promises, inaugural speech, and vision for Ghana. The president's attire bears the enduring mark of Jinyame, which means except God, the most revered of Adinkra symbols. This motif proclaims a reflection of President Mahama's acknowledgement of divine providence in his return to the presidency after 8 years. In his inaugural address, he began with gratitude.
Our Father who art in heaven, we thank you for giving us this day, a day that offers me, your humble servant, a unique opportunity to work to reset our dear country, Ghana.
The Sankofa is perhaps the most popular Adinkra symbol, representing redemption, renewal, and a nation ready to correct its course. Mahama's campaign slogan echoed these ethos: resetting Ghana and building a country we want together. His words at the ceremony reaffirmed this.
Today should mark the beginning of a new opportunity, an opportunity for us to make a difference in our governance and our economic management. We shall reset our dear nation, Ghana.
The intricate design of the Dwinemin, symbolizing strength, tempered by humility. Mahama's journey is a proof to this. Once a president, then an opposition leader, and now returning with an air of introspection. He embodies the balance of power and humility. His words capture this duality.
As your next leader, I shall strive to exercise sound judgment and be able to make the right calls at the right time. I will have the humility and presence of mind to take responsibility for any challenges and be willing to act firmly and timelessly to resolve the challenges that we face as a nation.
Finally, the Nyamidia, signifying God's presence and protection, completes the motifs. In Ghanaian culture, this sacred stamp is a symbol of reliance on divine guidance. As President Mahama stood beneath the Ghanaian sky, he offered thanks. Nyamidia reinforces his promise of leadership rooted in faith and a vision of unity and progress.
With Nana, Jane, Opoku-Agyeman by my side, we are poised to embark on a journey of progress and inclusivity, united in our vision for a more prosperous Ghana.
As President John Mahama leads Ghana into a new chapter, he does so with a clear vision, one of resetting Ghana, building a brighter future together, and relying on the values that have shaped the nation for generations. Emmanuel Jivenu, Joy News, Accra.
and Emmanuel Jivenu knows how to tell a story. Away from that, a Bobobo group based in La Paz here in Accra brought electrifying energy to the inauguration of President John Mahama, performing for free as a gesture of their support and admiration for the new administration. And speaking to Joy News, leaders of the group expressed their happiness in contributing to the historic occasion. Maxwell Agbagba tells us more.
The inauguration ceremony has ended here at the Black Star Square. It's time for celebration. And what we're witnessing here, a Bobobo group just set up right here in the inner perimeter of the inauguration grounds. Of course, the inauguration has ended and some Bobobo music. Time to enjoy some Bobobo music. I have the leader of the group here with me. Let's speak to him. Hi, what's your name, sir?
My name is Gabriel Ajugba.
Gabriel, okay, what's the name of your group?
The group name is Ajojina Fafali Bobo Band. We came on our own. We tried, but we couldn't get the access. So we came on our own.
Wow.
Yes.
To perform free?
Yes.
To the people here?
Yes.
Why do you feel the need to do this?
Yes, it's because of the victory. The victory goes to all of us. So we feel like we need to contribute. We feel like we need to contribute to the victory.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this is to entertain the people?
Yes. So we used to entertain people, even if you are doing engagement, outdooring, funeral, and etc. Anything to invite us, you can call us.
Okay. If you are doing this for free, without being paid, I'm sure you are particularly excited because John Mahama has been sworn in as president.
Yes.
What are your expectations of John Mahama as the new president?
Oh, what we need or what we want from the president to do for we, the youth, we need jobs, as he promised. So, and we know he will deliver. That is why we are here, to support him.
How can anyone hear these sounds and remain still? But away from that, Overlord of the Wala State, Naf Hussein Seidu Pelpio IV, has commended President-elect John Dramani Mahama for his endorsement of the retention of Alban Kingsford Sumana Bagbin as Speaker of the 9th Parliament. Now, in a statement read on his behalf by spokesperson Jenpehi Na Kadri Ibrahim, noted that the recommendation to MPs to retain Alban Bagbin is a manifestation that President-elect, now President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, has a discerning eye and approve of quality. Joy News Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Wa.
Speaker Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, few months ago, was enskined by the Wallo Overlord, now Hussein Sidi Philippe IV, as a sub-chief of Dakarle, a sacred pond where the totem crocodiles of the people reside. His endorsement of President-elect John Dramani Mahama, who a few years ago was also enskinned by the Wallo Overlord as the chief of the pond of Queen Mothers, Napobokale, to be the Speaker of the 9th Parliament, is refreshing, who they commended the latter over. Addressing the press on behalf of the Overlord of the Wala State, spokesperson Jimpen Nakadir Ibrahim noted that Speaker Alban Bagbin showed his mettle and had his head over the water even under difficult circumstances, which earned the respect of all.
The Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament of the 8th Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, the Dakarle, acquitted himself creditably and gained a top-notch regard for himself, despite the fact that he had to manage the most difficult parliament in the history of parliamentary democracy in Ghana.
He commended President-elect for his decision to recommend him to be retained as the Speaker of the 9th Parliament.
Settling on the Right Honorable Dakarle Alban S.K. Bagwin to steer the affairs of the 9th Parliament is a manifestation that you have a discerning eye and approve of quality and commitment to selfless service. It is patently clear that you are looking for the best to help you run the country. With the Right Honorable Dakaralena Albaneske Bagwin, you are spot on, Your Excellency, and the whole nation is behind you.
A series of programs were held at the One House Palace, which included the slaughtering of cow for sacrificial purposes and the recitation of all 114 chapters of the Holy Quran for Allah to guide the President-elect and the Speaker in their dealings, and also for the peace of the country. Imam of the Central Mosque, Alhaji Yaya Ponjang, sandwiched by his clansmen from the Mari, who serves as the spiritual godfathers of the world overlord, and joined by Yerenemine and other section heads of the Wala state, took charge of the chronic recitation. Reporting for J News, Rafiq Salam.
From Wa, let's get straight into our business updates with Samuel Kojobrace.
Well, let's do the AM update. And finance professor at Andrews University, Williams Pepper, says the new government must enhance the property tax to help rake in more revenue. According to him, the new government's plans to remove some taxes, such as the e-levy and betting tax, will pose a threat to revenue mobilization, hence the need to aggressively find alternatives to generate more revenue. He spoke to Joy Business.
Remember, this first quarter budget was done by the previous government. So they still did the budget based on their strategy, which is a little bit in line with the IMF program. I'm sure the government in the first quarter will have to review that budget, and they may have to align some of the expenditure items. I'm sure we are still not going to have 120 ministers, so that section of the expenses will have to be relooked at. Also, in terms of, there's one line item that the previous government wanted to make sure that we get revenue from, which they failed, which is the property tax. If the e-levy and covert taxes are going to be abolished, the alternative for government is to make sure that they ensure that the property tax regime is enhanced. And that one alone, I'm sure there are a lot of studies that have been done that they say that that one alone can give us almost about 2 to 3% of our GDP, revenue to GDP. So that portion will be able to make up for any shortfall that may arise going forward. So the property tax regime must be ensured that comes into force. And to me, when these are done, it's going to be able to ensure that that deficit that we are talking about will be reduced significantly. So the business environment have suffered from two main angles. One, instability in the exchange rate regime, and two, unfriendly tax administration. We know that the business community, though they complain about the issue of exchange rate, the direct one that they see, that they think that they can manage, is that our tax administration is not friendly enough. So the current government, this government must make sure that the tax policies, as he's talked about tax rationalization, they must make our tax administration very friendly to the business people. And I'm sure the business community, once the tax administration is very friendly, the tax structures have been aligned, and those that has to be removed has been removed. Specifically, like for example, VAT, we pay tax on tax. That must be realigned. It shouldn't be in that line. And when you're able to do this, it's going to make sure that the business community will open up and business will flow. And the government wants to focus on the 24-hour economy. This can be achieved when there is the tax environment is very friendly. So for me, the tax administration point must be friendly. The taxman must not be seen as an enemy to businesses, but must be seen to enhance production. And that is a way to go about it.
Well, let's talk about LPG now. The price of LPG is expected to go up by some 3% per kilogram. This has been influenced by rising prices of the product on the international market. Speaking to Joy Business, Vice Chairman of LPG Marketers Association, Gabriel Kumi, is positive the stabilization of the city could help reduce the impact of this increase on consumers.
2 to 3%. Well, if we are lucky and our suppliers, the BDCs, are magnanimous enough and take off that expected percentage increase and give that to us as our New Year bonus, then we are going to see a very stable price. But if they decide to pass on the increase to us, we also have no other option than to pass it on to our cherished consumers. So it depends on how the BDCs also react to the upsurge in price of the finished products that we are seeing on the market. But even when you also check for the price of the next window beginning 16, the indications are already out and it's also showing a positive sign. So we are likely to see some increase in the price of LPG going forward. We are hoping that the incoming administration will work quickly to stabilize the city. The international price of the product, we have very little control. But if the city is able to stabilize and even appreciate against the dollar, that will knock off any potential negative effect that international price of the product is likely to have on the product locally.
Let's see how that goes. But that's Gabriel Kumi of the LPG Marketers Association. Back to you, Sweetie Abochi.
Thank you so much, Kojo Brace. And that wraps up the AM News Bulletin on the AM Show. But of course, the news review comes up right after. And Dr. Kwame Asasante is joining us to review the newspapers. We're back in a bit. Please stay.
So welcome to the AM show, and it's time for us to go into what the papers are reporting this morning. But trust that it will be full of what happened, yesterday at the Black Star Square, the historic moment where Ghana cemented its role as a leading democracy in the sub-region. Of course, we've been a beacon of hope for Africa in terms of democracy for a long time. And yesterday, we really showcased why we are revered in terms of democracy. Sudi, let's go to the papers and see what...
Yes, but our guest joining us to help us review the newspapers is Dr. Kwame Asasante, and he joins us via Zoom. Doc, thank you so much. Yesterday, you spent some time with us, and we are grateful to have you again this morning.
Good morning, friends, and good morning to our viewers as well. Yes, it was a good day yesterday.
Right. So, Doc, let's get straight into your trail of thoughts. You have to share some thoughts with us this morning. Let's get right into it.
Right. Let me look at yesterday what happened. As a student of democracy, yesterday democracy was reborn. Why am I saying that? More often than not, you tend to have democracy and you tend to also have reversals, like what we are seeing in the sub-region, where military have had field day and then they are doing their own thing. We have worked hard and we've been able to vote, and the loser of the election, without any force on him, accepted defeat, and we move on to another level. The difficult level is that sometimes elections are won and those leaving office are not prepared to disengage or hand over power. But we crossed that river yesterday with a smooth transition of power. And for me, that is what gladdens my heart, that power change from a government in office to an opposition. And gradually, it tells me that we are deepening and consolidating our democracy. I was, very much happy with that. And I will urge my countrymen that let us continue, in spite of the difficulties that we have in our society, in spite of the challenges that are ahead, let us have faith in democracy, and then make sure that we also apply our shoulders to the wheels, and then work and support democracy. In no time, we'll reap the dividends.
Right.
It is true that sometimes it takes time, but I know one day we'll reap the dividends. Yesterday, look at how everybody was happy. That is the spirit behind democracy. Let's consolidate it. Let's work all the fine details, and let's strengthen its frontiers.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
Dr. Kwame Asasante, you have some thoughts to
No,
share?
I mean, I agree with him that, you see, democracy as we do practices has its own downturns, but I always say that the positives are that much. So let's look at it. We may not derive the sort of benefit we want now, but in the interim, and yesterday he said something, that they witnessed military those days. So in the beginning, they will say, oh, everything is fine, but in the long term, they won't deliver to you the sort of value that you want. So let's stick with democracy, no matter how bad it is. I think this is the best we can have. Let's just try to refine it and get leaders who will be accountable to us. Like we've done, if we continue to show them that we have the power, they will come and do what we want.
Right.
If you don't do it, we'll kick you out of power.
I think at this point, it's no longer NDC and PP. What's outstanding would be that those 4 disputed constituents that are still, unresolved. But let's see how that also is resolved. So let me start with my newspaper, the Ghanaian Times, and I like what they've done with the front page. We have the photo of the President of the Republic, John Mahama, in that beautiful outfit he wore yesterday. And of course, I must say, Emmanuel Jivenu's report, fantastic report on the outfit of the president. But let me get into it now. So the first story here, son arrested for allegedly killing mother with pestle after a history of threats. I thought we were going to start on a rather exciting note. So a 26-year-old farmer, Yao Nimwa, has been arrested by the Dambai Police Command for allegedly killing his mother, Madam Salome Amasewa, a 60-year-old woman, with a pestle at Yabram, a suburb of the Oti regional capital, Dambai. And Mr. Philip, the assembly member of the Kwame Accra East electoral area, told Ghana News Agency that the suspect had a long history of threatening his mother with cutlass on several occasions. Well, I guess then it's good news that the police picked him up. And Fire Guards Kantamanto Market, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia Lanchiramantin supports traders. We know that both of them donated 200,000 Ghana cedis from Baumia and 100,000 Ghana cedis from Alanchiramantin. 9th Parliament takes off, 275 MPs sworn in. Ablekuma North results pending. All right, that's an update. And the 9th Parliament of the 4th Republic of Ghana was, in the wee hours of yesterday, inaugurated for a 4-year term. And in all, 275 of the 276 newly elected MPs were inducted into office. And of course, the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, retains his seat. Let me quickly add 3 more headlines, and then we come to you, Doc, for your reflections. World leaders, others congratulate President John Mahama. Of course, we saw how the crowd cheered when Traore was introduced. Looks like he has some fans, Brace.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you remember that at a point in time, some Ghanaians were craving for a possible military takeover.
Yeah, that Afrobarometer report pointed to that.
It all stemmed from what he and his colleagues did and the stories we heard that they were doing in government.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that love for him is there.
Yeah,
we see what happens in some 10 years to come. But yes, he has love in Ghana.
He does. And finally, let me just say, my government will be swift, decisive in tackling socio-economic challenges. That's what President Mahama said. And then end of an era, as former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo delivers parting words at Sona. And then, of course, a new day, the journey of Mahama's historic comeback. Most of the stories in here really about yesterday's inauguration. But, Doc, over to you.
Yes, I think I'll look at the Mahama story. That's the big one. If you look at the speech that he gave, it hinges on 4 important things. That he will strengthen he will set the economy and strengthen its frontiers. He will invest in business and ensure that there is improvement there. And he will also, he talked about government and governance and then constitutional reforms. He also touched on accountability and corruption. Yeah. Very important indicators of good governance. And I want him to be able to work on these things very fast because he has no time. 4-year mandate. So he has to hit the ground running and then set the country and set the economy. Once the economy is set and set well, it will rob off other sectors and everybody will be fine. Right. But I was disappointed in the speech by one thing that conspicuously missing in President Mahama's speech was the issue of Galamsey. He didn't touch on that. Was expecting that to be part of the four, to be added to the 4 main items. So maybe, please kindly tell Mr. Mahama that we want him to add Galamsey because the battle continues. We want to deal with this problem head on. And if he's able to do it well, he's going to get people employed in there, and he's going to get Ghanaians supporting him, and we're going to get back our water bodies which are destroyed and arable lands destroyed. And the threat against agriculture, particularly cocoa, will be a thing of the past. So I will urge him humbly that he should add it so that we get 5 points and then we work around it. Well, issue of a son killing the mother, a very unfortunate story. Look at what parents go through, particularly women, to give birth to children. And at the end of the day, children will take their lives. Well, it's a difficult one. But the good news is that they are at appropriate forum, the court. Yeah. The court has something that they will say at the end of the show. Then the issue of 275 MPs sworn in. A beautiful ceremony, I witnessed. And by all its intents and purposes, it was just a beautiful program. No scene. And we saw a whole group of people who are now getting opportunity to be in parliament. Young, old, and then experience being maintained and all that. That blend is good. Right. Even though people complain about attrition rate and all that, but that one, we shouldn't worry ourselves because what we decide is what is in parliament. So at a point in time, when we vote in a certain fashion, that's the result we want. Yeah. All that we have to do is that we have to help them to build capacity. And I know Parliament has the ability to inculcate certain values in them, build their capacity, and they become the best. And I was also extremely happy that the Speaker is back. An experience of all, he has seen it all. And a Parliament of this nature is weak ab initio, because you have almost absolute majority on the part of the NDC. So you need a leader who will be able to, a speaker who will be able to steer the affairs well and hold the balance so that we don't lose out. Let us remember that in a democracy, we're saying it's majority decision, but we are also interested in minority interests. The two go hand in hand. So if you have a speaker, you will always protect minority interests. When you lose out, democracy fails. Right. And then those of us outside Parliament, all right, we will also make sure that the proper balance is restored. Remember, after 1992 election, there was no opposition in Parliament except for 2 independent candidates. But Parliament, the opposition was outside Parliament, and they did a great job. That is the kind of work we have to do to support Parliament. Thank you so much, Doc. And let's get into your
let's do the news center, and some interesting stories here. Senate announces 12% increase in monthly pensions for 2025. Okay. So if you're a pensioner, of course, this will come as a good news to you. Mahama begins second term, promises to restore stability and foster development. And there's a feature here. It says hypocrisy. Voices silent during campaign now urging President Mahama not to scrap taxes. So let's go into the stories here. This one says, Mahama describes Akufo-Addo as a worthy opponent. Tinubu pledges support for Mahama administration. It's a moment of emotion for me, Afenyo Marking says, as it delivers final remarks. And I want to do the 12% one because it's interesting to our pensioners. Okay, let me look for, okay. So Senate announces some 12% increase in monthly pensions for 2025. So that is what the Social Security and National Insurance Trust is announcing, that they will increase monthly pensions for 2025 by 12%. So, Doc, let's do this story. Especially, I have interest in the Senate one.
Yeah, it is a good news by all standards, and that after you have worked and served your country and you want to relax, you don't want to die as a poor person or without even having opportunity to get medication and the rest of them. So if your pension is increased, it's good, and it gives people the opportunity to work hard and then support the scheme so that one day, when they also become old, they can fall on that. We need to expand this. I am looking forward to a day that we will have support for, facilities for old people who have no homes, and then we keep them. That should also occupy our attention. Because sometimes you see very old, fragile people lying in the streets. And these are things that going forward, we must avert our minds to.
So a housing scheme for older pensioners or just older people in general?
Older people. There are some people who have never gone through any formal work. So pension, they are out of that scheme. Where do they live? Where do they sleep? Is there any shelter for them? Let us think about that one day, and then as it exists in other parts of the world, that older people's home, that they go there, you have no place, you are there, and then little facility given to you. Then you know that this is your country, and then you are proud of it and all that. These are some of the things that keep people very much attached to their countries. Let us build that capacity now.
Okay, I don't know, but probably let's deal with the point about those who were silent during campaign now, asking President Mahama not to scrap taxes. I mean, are people wrong to look at what the reality is in terms of our economy and urge the president not to scrap the taxes? He promised to do so, because if he does, it probably won't be good for the economy.
Let me start with those who believe that there were a number of groups or individuals who could have said something about the ills in our society, and they failed to do that. So for that reason, they have no business in this administration criticizing them and all that. That is wrong. They are part of the stakeholders of this country. They will continue to speak, and when they want to speak, they can speak at any time. But if you take that position too, there is also a cost to that. The cost is that sometimes you come under serious attack. That matters that we needed your voice, you were absent. But that aside, taxes are important. If you study state capacity, that is the ability of the state to make policy and enforce them. It's part of what we call in political science state capacity. One aspect is extractive capacity. The state must make use of all available resources to generate revenue to run its own affairs. It is, compulsory on the part of the state to generate resources from within and use it to run its own affairs. So if the state is able to do that, it will save itself by going with a cap in hand, going globe-trotting to get money to run its affairs. So if people advise that don't scrap these taxes, I think I am with them. Sometimes campaign can lead you into making all manner of statements, but the reality will dawn on you. If you take away these taxes, this A, B, C, D, E, F, what are you going to run the affairs of the state with? And that is going to be challenged. So in election campaign, even though we want to promise, we must be moderate or modest about it, because it will come back to bite us bitterly. I don't believe that some of the taxes should go. They should remain. If you want to reduce the magnitude of the tax or the burden, fine. But complete taking it away, I disagree.
Which of the taxes do you want maintained?
I want e-levy to be maintained. Okay. I want it to be maintained. But if you want to do something about the level, fine. Because it's one surest means by which government can raise revenue to run the affairs of the state. Okay. So if you work on the tax burden and then you can reduce it, you will get a lot of people coming in to support. But taking it away, I'm afraid. Look at the number of people who transfer money day in, day out. And I, from day one, I have never been against what e-levy. When the conversation at that time was that, should we scrap it or maintain it at 1.5 or 1? I was part of those who believe in 1% because the economists at the time and the financial experts that we can bear. So if this government can look at it and then work on the burden to reduce it a little bit for people to be able to get more people to pay, why not? But taking it away, I disagree.
Right.
Yeah, all right.
Let me bring in these two stories quickly, and then Samuel, I'll return to you. CD to end 2025 around 17.70 dollar. That is a report. The Ghana cedi is projected to close the year around 17.70 to $1 in 2025, with a deviation of 20 pesos. That's according to Data Bank research, and they're revealing this, that its expectation is supported by the likely strengthening of gold reserves and the upgrade of the Ghanaian economy, which is expected to boost market sentiment. And GUSA, 28th GUSA Games opens in Cape Coast. There was a splendid performance to herald the opening of the 28th Ghana University Sports Association GUSA Games, currently ongoing in Cape Coast. And it's a 15-day event on the theme Repositioning University Sports for National Development, and it featured all 16 public universities. But there's something interesting which I like. They're saying that sales soared at President Mahama's inauguration. Several hundreds of traders cashed in on the swearing in of President John Mahama and his Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, yesterday at the Black Star Square. And the traders displayed the NDC paraphernalia, including T-shirts, handkerchiefs, etc. And most of the items, they say, were sold out at very cheap prices. So at least the traders cashed in yesterday. Could you any more before we go to the overseer? Maybe
I think all the papers, the inquisitor is still about the swearing in.
Right.
Fact that the voter NDC is congratulating Professor Prosper Bunny on his appointment as head of interim national security. Bagbin vows to deliver responsible and fair parliament. I think, basically about what is happening with inauguration and all of that.
Doc,
but
some
it was Eurojet accuses Akufo-Addo of illegality. But
should we get into it?
Well,
if Eurojet is accusing former president...
this is what came up before the inauguration. Remember last week, Eurojet put out a statement in which they were saying that they did not give permission to the government for the president to go and commission.
I'm wondering if it's an update, something that we...
it's still the same thing, on January 4th.
All right. Doc, any quick reflections on the headlines so far? I still have one more.
I will look at the sales saw at the program. It is to be expected. On occasions like this, people will go there for pomp and pageantry. But besides that, people will also go for their daily bread. They sell and all that. It is fine, provided they keep the environment clean there. But that aside, there is something that is missing in all this story. I wanted to see a story on the vice president, the first lady, moving from the first woman vice chancellor to the first woman vice president. It is a big story. It escaped the attention of my colleague journalist. I mean, this is a big story. A big in the sense that this is a woman that people chastise, people said all manner of negative things. But here you are. The good people of this country has held the woman high, putting women at the highest level of our life. It is my hope and prayer that one day we'll get a woman who is a president. I enjoy Legon today because a lot of people who are holding positions in Legon are women, and I salute them. I want more because women have a lot to share, a lot to give to society. So we should do our best to support them at all times. So I was very happy to see a woman, and I am also happy that when the call came for people to speak. I spoke about it, that she is fit for purpose. And today, the people of Ghana have voted to vindicate my position and those who also think alike. Going forward, let us support women. Let us develop them. Let us build capacity. And then at the end of the day, we can get the best. We will support every woman. I will work to support every woman because I believe that there are certain potentials that they have, but our society, because of its patriarchal nature, we have not tapped. Let us tap and build our society.
Doc, I'm curious, just a quick follow-up. Do you think this is because it's normal that more attention is given to the president rather than advice? I get the analogy that it's the first time we're getting a female vice president, but is there the same hullabaloo there would be if the vice president was a man? Do you think?
Men, we have seen men in public office time and again. But at the highest office, we have not seen women. So for you to get a woman vice president, I wanted to see big headline on that. I'm not the one teaching them how to do journalism. No, but for me, from where I sit, that's a big story. It's a big story because all this while we are saying that let us develop the girl child, so and so. And we have built capacity from this and other women that today we have a first woman vice chancellor, which is a big one. If you are, all of you are familiar with the university and the kind of human resource there for you to be singled out as a vice chancellor, you've seen it all. And then you run that, microcosm of what? The university is the microcosm of the country. You run that and then you come to the national level and you are selected and become what? The vice president. It's a big one. I support that call, the call for what? Gender parity, the call for women empowerment. For me, that's the basis of any civilized society.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and it's good news for those of us who are from the University of Cape Coast. We've produced the first female vice president for Ghana.
Yes.
But there's also another story in the Inquisitor, which of course is interesting. Alan Chromantin is urging the Mahama government to establish a $2 billion market infrastructure development in the wake of the Kantamanto issue. And Guta is appealing to the Gbese stool, is it Gbese? The Gbese stool, to allow temporary wooding structures. Doc, I don't know if you want to touch on, especially the $2 billion market infrastructure development fund.
Can you, hit on that?
Okay.
I missed
so it says, after witnessing the devastation caused by the recent fire at the Kantamanto market, Alan Chromantin, leader of the Movement for Change and a prominent advocate for economic transformation, has called on the government to establish a $2 billion market infrastructure development fund. Speaking to journalists, he described the fund as a sustainable solution to financing the development of modern market infrastructure across the country, which he sees as critical to revitalizing commerce and distributive trade.
I think that proposal is an apt description of the situation on the ground. I always respect Alan Chromantin. He's a man of ideas and wisdom. I have no doubt in my mind that this is what we need. Not that we rush and go and give money. I'm not saying it's not good. It is temporary. But for permanent solution, we need a fund like this so that we'll build modern market. I go to the market. I've told my wife that you should stay home for a while. Let me visit the market and have, first-hand experience in the market. The way where our women sell. Go to Medina, which I visit all the time. Sometimes where they sit, you see mud, you see very unkept conditions. And I ask myself, if markets were like this in America and London, are we going to, patronize such places? I want women's dignity to be lifted up. Let us develop a better place for them to make a living. They also are entitled to that. And if you see our market, it's a sorry story. So people go there, set fire, and today they are very hot. All right, we need something that will stand the test of time. So a fund like this is a solution for the future. That is not to rubbish people who want to support and all that, going to give something to relieve them of their pain and all that. It's a good thing. But going forward as a state, all that I want is permanent solution. And public policy must move towards that. Public policy is future problem we are solving today. I want to see a real public policy in that direction.
Okay, all right. Interesting.
There's something that also stuck out for me yesterday. You know, when President John Mahama started his speech about geopolitical, you know, the powers that be, the divides and all that, I thought for a second that he was going to maybe align, you know, with or something. And then he cleverly just, you know, he didn't actually align. He just said that, well, we are aware that there's a situation like this going on. The powers are shifting. And I thought that was very strategic in a way, saying that Ghana is also ready, a power that you can contend with. We are going to be aligning in either of these, you know, world powers. So just get ready for us.
So
I don't know.
With the background, where do you think if we have to align, he probably will take
Of course. I don't think that we are good. From the analysis that he did about the projected GDP growth and all that, you can clearly tell
was 37.5% in 2024, as against the 30-point-something% for US, UK, and so.
What would you rather do, growing power or declining? Let me throw that to Dr. Kwame Asante. How did you find that bit about Mahama's speech?
No, I didn't get that. What was about that speech that you want me to know?
About his comments on the geopolitical powers and how the G7 seemingly are not the ones running things right now, and the BRICS are also doing great. And so what I was saying is that it was interesting that he started but didn't actually align with anyone. He left it very cleverly open. I don't know what you made of it.
I follow that, but alignment, those things put you in a very tight corner, and you are not able to navigate your way properly. So that strategy was a good one, so that you create a window of opportunity. When there are difficulties, you can run through. But tied to it was something I observed yesterday from international relation perspective, that you saw African leaders coming in their numbers to congratulate him here. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was a big one. It is what? A total endorsement of the people of Africa, saying that, hey, a new wind is blowing in Ghana. Let us be part and parcel of it. In international relations, when you have leaders of that nature visiting an important occasion like that, it sends signal to people who are lovers of those states that these are our friends that you can also be your friends and all that. We saw African leaders, Nigeria particularly, 3 leaders, 2 past leaders and the current leader. Very interesting. And you saw the ones from Kigami and the rest of them, including those from Latin America. Then I realized that wow, we are getting a certain picture, because in the 19th, when Buzias assumed the reins of government, there was a day that the wife of the US president visited Ghana. And that was one of the things that also boosted our investor confidence. That when you begin to have these people coming, it's a good sign. Yesterday you saw the German head of state also here. I said, that's it. It is my hope and prayer that the government will take advantage of this and build this country along the lines that we can make benefit out of this.
Okay. I thought Dr. Asante was going to go the military ruler who had a lot of chairs.
Traore, Ibrahim.
Yeah, if you want me to touch on that, I decided to be quiet. Yes, the leader was here and all that. People were cheering him. I had a different position because of my, I detest military rule.
Okay.
I detest that. It doesn't matter what you do and all that. And yesterday, I think I shared a little bit of it with you.
Yes.
So, yes, you can look at it from another perspective that, yes, you want to call the friendship of all of them. Who knows that one day they can abandon what they are doing and join ECOWAS and all that. And then also eventually disengage and hand over power to this. But I also have a different view about the military. I will let me suspend that for now. Let us be in the mood of celebrating another birth of our republic.
But did you realize that from Nigeria there were some billionaires who came? Tony Elumelu was here. I also saw a picture of the husband to that actress. I've forgotten his name. He's also a billionaire. That there's a young Nigerian actress who's married to a billionaire.
Yes.
He was also here. If those billionaires are coming in, then of course it tells you.
Like our president is popular.
or maybe
to
take advantage of the opportunities in Ghana.
Yeah.
And why not? We're with arms open. We'll welcome them to invest in this country.
And he actually says, let me quote this from the Overseer newspaper. It says, to the business leaders and entrepreneurs, I invite you to support this new model and join me in shaping a business environment where utility thrives and fruits of your investment contribute to the collective welfare of our nation. Basically saying that Ghana is open for business again. So if you were waiting, observing to see how the end of these, the Akufo-Addo administration will be and, how we'll smoothly transition to his administration now, well, we are ready and set, so come in and invest. And we should be wrapping up, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Asante, we are grateful to you that you could find time this morning to join us here on the AM show.
Have a good day and continue to support the cause of this republic. I wish you a good day.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Asante is head of the European Center at the University of Ghana, and he's been with us here. Okay, but I guess that, yesterday, so the Nigerian person I was talking about was Regina Daniels.
Regina Daniels,
Yeah, the husband is I saw him and Tony Elumelo here. Tony Elumelo, of course, I saw him going to congratulate President Mahama. He is one person who has really pumped a lot of money into, young people on the African continent.
Well, we should be wrapping up, and thank you so much, Doc, for joining us. Please stay because sports comes up next in a bit. Please keep watching the AM show.
Welcome to the sports segment on the AM show. My name is Harun Mubarak. Now, having been sworn in as the president of Ghana for the next 4 years, John Dramani Mahama faces a challenge of revitalizing the nation's sports sector. Now, to enable Ghana to compete strongly at international competitions, there is the need for proper scouting of talent and the construction of facilities for the goal to be realized. Joy Sports editor Fentio Tahiru Fentio has more.
I think that they should really consider partnering with secondary schools across the country to set up what I would like to call right to dreams across all 16 regions. And you don't need to set up a whole new school, build a whole new school. No, you just need to identify one secondary school and convert it into a school of sports development. And that way, then you can just build adjoining facilities. So they already have a football pitch, fix it, add a track, add an indoor sports auditorium. And that indoor sports auditorium can have a basketball court, it can have a volleyball court, it can have all these other things in there, like we have in many US high schools. Just build one hall that has everything to add to the track and then the football field that's already there. And then what we can do is that, obviously, because it's already a secondary school, the classes already exist. So it's school and sports. And those are specialized secondary schools across all the 16 regions. You have just one in each region. So you have coaches for various sports in there. You have teachers. You can have one headmaster. And you have two assistant headmasters, one in charge of sports, one in charge of academic. So once someone goes through that in 3 years, there's academic curriculum and there is sports curriculum. If they finish the school, whichever one will help them would help them. But that is sports at the very grassroots, because we go to secondary school at age 13, 14. It's brilliant, it's fantastic. By the time you finish at age 17, 18, you know exactly what you want to do. We can get all our under 17 footballers from there. We can get under 18 athletes from there. We can get amateur boxers from these schools. That way it becomes a system. And I think we will benefit immensely from that. Because trust me, and even the GFA can select their under 17 players there and take to Pram. They don't need to go around the whole country scouting for talent. The talent are already in school. Because look, the Right to Dream model, and it's happening right here in Ghana. And the Right to Dream model has university graduates from Ivy League schools in the US. And they started here, right here, in Old Accra. The football didn't work out for them, and they ended up getting scholarships to go to schools in America. even without the sports, because it's also a really good school that they have over there. This Central Sports Fund can fund those schools. You understand? So for me, like, these two ideas, I feel are grand ideas.
Now, plans to unearth talented players such as former Black Stars captain Stephen Appiah are back on track in Bukom, following the refurbishment of an astroturf by the Coastal Development Authority. My colleague Razak Musbah was there and reports.
Add on.
Originally transformed from a sandy pitch to a modern astroturf in 2020 under the Government One Constituency, One Astroturf initiative, the facility unfortunately fell into disrepair due to misuse by locals.
We had a general meeting with them, and they told us what's happened, and we're surprised. And they then requested that there should be private management of this place, because as soon as the place was constructed, everybody felt, oh, this is government money. And so there was like no control. And in no time, they themselves ran this place down. So for about 2 years, they were crying for help for the place to be restored.
However, after community leaders stepped in with a request in 2022, Coastal Development Authority sprang into action, launching a refurbishment plan. The renovation of the facility included installation of a new astroturf, construction of a new fence, and the upgrade of the places of convenience. Speaking at the commissioning ceremony, CEO of the Coastal Development Authority, Jerry Ahmed Shaibu, emphasized the importance of community members allowing for a good maintenance culture to ensure the facility's longevity.
This is a park which this is the second time we are doing it in 4 years. In somewhere 2021, 2022, this park was virtually done, but the people were left to manage it on their own. They played football virtually 24/7. And, you know, the park became very deteriorated. So we found a need to call them, have a word with them, let them understand that it has to be a private partnership project. So you have a private person who is manning the park, making some proceeds just to, not for profit, but just to ensure that they can keep running the park. For instance, electricity, water, and the usual maintenance of the turf itself. So the people and chiefs agreed, and that is how we got to this stage. My advice to them is that they should allow for proper maintenance and management, because if they allow Oxygen Capital to run it the way it has to be run, it is for them. It is for the young people who are coming up as footballers. It's for those who want to have wedding programs and other social activities here. It's for them. Those who do business here. I remember they used to sell Indomie, Kelewele, in the night. If this park is maintained, a lot of business of this nature can still be run. And people would make some money and make some ends meet. So it's just our prayer that they should understand that the park is for them. There is only a manager who is managing it for them. And the manager is not really making any profit, because if they are able to manage it well, it is for them. If it is unmanaged properly, it is up to them.
Community member Emmanuel Mensah also expressed gratitude towards the authority and pledged to protect the facility from future deterioration.
We are grateful for the work that they've done for us here, and we must say that we will cooperate with them and work with them. Initially, they did it for us, and we were not able to manage it. And as of now, they've been able to bring it back for us. So we must say they've done a good job, and we support them. In fact, we don't know they can do this, but they've done it for us. So as people and also a former footballer, I think they've done a good job. So we will cooperate with them and work with them.
Although the AstroTurf is not FIFA standard, it is expected to nurture football talents in the area, which has produced stars like former Black Stars captain Stephen Appiah.
All right, so welcome back from the break. This is still the AM show. Time for us to discuss some of the pertinent issues that came out of that particular speech by President John Dramani Mahama. Now, resetting Ghana with a major focus on 4 critical areas. He mentioned economic restoration and stabilization of the macroeconomic environment, also improvement of the business and investment environment to open up Ghana again to business. He says he would also look at governance and constitutional reforms and accountability and fight against corruption. But we ask, with signs of power crisis already staring government in the face, less than 24 hours of taking office, is the reset agenda in jeopardy? We find out as we discuss this and many other matters from the inauguration of the newly sworn-in President John Dramani Mahama. You know what? Just at the inauguration grounds, we spoke to the former ranking on the Energy Committee of Parliament and someone who's been taped to either be at the Energy Ministry, because he was once there, John Mahama, who then made a revelation that the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government was able to leave fuel that will last us up to 5 hours. And after that, there's no other fuel. He says it will take Ghana weeks to import fuel for us to generate power. So it means what he's telling us is that it's possible we can experience Dumsor. We spoke to him at the inauguration grounds. Let's listen to him. When we come back, we'll engage minds who are well-versed in this particular field of energy.
Well done. I have bad news for you. Just today, the confirmation we are getting is that we have only 5 hours of fuel stock. If you look at heavy fuel oil and distillate fuel, we don't have up to 2 days. And so in 2 days' time, we are likely to run out of fuel. This administration has not ordered any fuel as we speak. And it takes on average 4 weeks for the fuel to arrive and 4 weeks for the fuel to be treated. And so we are in a very serious situation. At the transition, we brought this up. The outgoing administration assured us that they had procured some parcels of fuel. Today, right after President Mahama assumed office, and I served on the transition, my checks indicate that we do not have fuel that can cater for even 2 days. So clearly we have a major problem. And this is an incoming administration. Even if you order the fuel, like I'm telling you, it will take about 8 weeks. So we are in for real trouble.
So that's John Mahama there speaking about what likely will confront this country. Let's bring in Nana Amwesi, who is the Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security. He'll be joining us. Remember that I'm still here with my colleague, Sweetie Abochi. We're going to do this together. Nana, I'm grateful to you that you could join us via Zoom. Let's start off to look at the energy sector itself. As we speak, what would you say, or where will you say the energy sector is? Are we in the ICU ready to probably experience some sort of, Dumsor of a sort, as we're being told?
Good morning to you, Kojo, and to your viewers. Kojo, we've had this discussion before, last 2 years, last year, and we made it clear to you and your viewers that even the last month we had a similar discussion on your program. We made it clear that we have a very weak and a fragile power system today.
Okay.
Yes, you'll find the light on, all right, but deep down are seated issues that must be solved to ensure that the light is truly held on. The power sector today, forgive me, is like a cow dung. You can find it dry out there, but when you go in, you will find that there are issues or there are systemic challenges like technical inefficiency, revenue mobilization challenges, inadequate planning, and the elephant in the room is its own challenges there. It does not give comfort to any, security of our supply. And so you see the light on, but a little, can really change everything, including the impending pigging arrangements by WAPCO. We have intercepted a document that suggests that from the 20th of January to somewhere mid of February, WAPCO will shut its natural gas pipeline for maintenance. That is to afford them the opportunity to clean the pipeline of any blockage and ensure a more fluid flow of gas in the coming months or years.
But that's something they communicated last year of doing, and that it will end in this month of January 2025. What has changed?
A lot of changed things. They communicated. Initially, it was supposed to be done somewhere in October 2024, but the previous government postponed that for convenience sake. And now they brought it forward to January 2020 up to 16th of February. When there is that, when that exercise comes on, the lateral that comes into, onshore, Togo, Benin, Ghana, they will close all those seas, and gas can only flow directly from Nigeria to Takoradi. And so the eastern corridor being Tema, enclave of power generation will not have natural gas flow.
I don't mean to cut you, but in December, this same WAPCO undertook an exercise in which they said they had even seen more debris than they expected, which then resulted in them cutting, extending the period at which they had to supply gas to Ghana. You remember that they closed down the Tema plant because of that debris. Wasn't that part of the exercise they were doing?
No, this is a new type of exercise that's looking at the subsea pipelines and the valves.
Okay.
So there are pipelines that you find onshore, and there's some segment that is offshore, and so that's in the sea. And so this time around, they want to inspect their valves and replace those that are necessary to be replaced. And so this is also a different exercise.
Okay.
So it's not the same, but they are all, called pigging exercise, but this is for a different segment of the line. And so if it happens, it means that SemPower, CAP, AXA, Asogli, the Pontema plants will all be short of gas supply. What they would need to survive and operate is liquid fuel. Unfortunately, we don't have adequate stock of liquid fuel to ensure that should the exercise start from 20th to February 16th, it can cover all that. And but we need to quickly get some liquid fuel. As a matter of fact, we are not expecting any excuses from the NDC government. They must get to work. Ghanaians will not forgive them if they see some of these things. We may understand that they have this challenge, but then what they can also do is to ask WAPCO to postpone the exercise, maybe for 2 weeks or for some 3 weeks, so that they afford them the room to import some liquid fuel. Yes, we have some liquid fuel with SemPower and as we speak, but that will not be enough to ensure that we have adequate supply of fuel for the power plant and to ensure that our lights are on for the coming weeks or months. So the NDC must get to work as soon as possible. No excuses here.
With the fuel that we have with Send and AXA, how many days can that fuel take us?
Well, when we checked the last time, being yesterday afternoon, AXA has fuel that can run for close to 7 days. SemPower has some too that can cover some 5-6 days. But Asogli has none. The Pontema plant has none. And so that does not give comfort at all. It means that we have issues here. And if we don't get that volume, adequate volume for them, it means that we are going to be short of about 1,050 megawatts of power supply. It will be taken away.
Okay.
Today, our peak demand is roughly 3,800. Should all the gas flow from Nigeria and from ENI, Sankofa, to the Western Corridor for car power and the others, and to Kumasi, we can only produce about 2,800 megawatts. And that means that a shortage of 1,000 megawatts of power generation, which must be shared. And when we share the load, it means that either Amuetu will not have power or my brother Brace will not have power.
Right. And I'm following the conversation, and it's very insightful, really. But I'm trying to understand, in the next maybe 100 days, what do we do to ensure that we keep the lights on? As simple as that, and be as specific as possible. Because you're talking about no excuses from the NDC. You mentioned the challenges we have, acquiring liquid fuel, inadequate planning, and ECG issues. What do we do in the next matter of days, to keep the lights on?
Sweetie, what we must do is that, to the extent that we have adequate installed capacity, we must resource this power plant so that it can generate power. One way is to arrange the timing of maintenance, particularly from WAPCO. We also need to have some stock of liquid fuel, since all the power plants, or almost all the power plants we have today, excluding the hydro and the solar, can run on multiple fuel, natural gas and liquid fuel. We must stock some liquid fuel also, so that we are sure of generation. The next leg is that we must concern ourselves with transmission and distribution of the power. We know grid lines are not so strong, yet for the 100 days, we have some comfort. However, the ECG system, as soon as possible, we must ensure that the little that they can distribute, the revenue mobilization must be enhanced so that the cash waterfall mechanism and the system can work to ensure equitable and fair distribution of revenue to all the utilities. Other than that, we may have a situation where WAPCO or any of the independent power producers that we've seen in the past, with the experience in the past, come to threaten us of a shutdown. And so it means that they must also engage the utilities and assure them, give them some form of assurance so that they also keep on working as they've done over the last 1 month since government did some intervention.
Okay, just approximately how much are we looking at? How much do we need to fix all these issues? How much? If you can give us an estimate, how much are we looking at? How much do we need? From
the GRICO WAPCO document or GRICO document we intercepted, they are suggesting something close to $8-9 million. If the maintenance will have to come on, and if we need to stock adequately, we need such an amount.
Nana, if you can do this for me in 10 seconds, I'll be happy. If everything remains as it is today, when should we expect to start having power power rationing? If everything remains the same.
The moment WAPCO starts its work, if it remains that they are going to shut down their lines and there's a restriction in the gas flow to the Eastern Corridor power plant, if they stick to that on 20th of January and we don't have adequate supply of gas, we must expect to see Dumsor from 20th of this month.
I was asking so because John Mahama was telling us that the fuel that they have would probably last us for 2 days.
Yeah.
And then what is remaining will last us for 5 hours.
Yes.
That's why I was asking that if everything remains same, when should we start to experience Dumsor? But you say it's 20th of January, which is contrary to what John Mahama told us earlier.
When we say the fuel we have, the fuel we have today, as we speak, and the part that is keeping all the power plants running is natural gas from the Western Corridor and from Nigeria to the power plant. But I'm sure it's alluding to a point where there's a restriction in the flow of natural gas. Then we don't have that comfort.
Okay.
If it happens today, even though the program is scheduled for 20th of this month, Kojo, anything can happen to the pipelines today that may restrict natural gas flow.
Okay.
At this very moment, anything can happen. So if it does happen, it means that what all the liquid fuel put together may not last for 2 days. Because even though what Power can last for about a week and after can last for a week, that's not enough. It means that Astogli and the thermal power plant are left bare.
Okay. Okay.
That's why it's trying to equate it to 2 days. Because the 8 days for the 2 power plants and nil for the other 2 power plants here doesn't really make it a comfort situation.
Okay. All right, then I'm grateful to you. Let me bring in Collins Adomako Mensah because he is the immediate past Deputy Minister for Energy, and he joins us to bring in some perspective.
Right.
We need to find out why they failed to procure enough fuel. Grateful to you for joining us here, sir. Why did your ministry fail to procure the necessary fuel to keep the lights on?
I'm not sure the strategy that is being adopted by my very good friend George Mahama. Listen, we went to an election. The NPP presented the
Mr. Adomako, I mean, it's a pleasure to have you, but we're finding it difficult in hearing what you're saying. I don't know if you can reposition yourself and then we begin again and see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, let's try.
So I'm saying that I'm not too sure of the strategy being adopted by my very, very good friend George Mahama. We went into an election. The NPP presented our manifesto. The Ghanaian people rejected our manifesto and accepted their manifesto. They tagged us as incompetent. They tagged us as not being able to manage our economy, manage the power sector, manage the energy sector. The Ghanaian people bought into their narrative. They voted against us. Yesterday, His Excellency John Mahama swore into office as our president. Their job now is to fix the problem. This is not the time to approach the blame. This is not the time.
No, of course, they will fix the problem, but he's trying to be real with Ghanaians to say that we want to fix it, but your government failed to make the necessary fuel available to take us some weeks so that they could also then take after that and build on. But you didn't. He's saying the fuel there, in the worst case scenario, can last us five hours.
I'm saying that he says that we don't have fuel, and so what? He spoke about that 24 hours ago. We are still having light. The point is that the FPP government left this government with lights on. It's as simple as that.
No,
right.
no. But did you make fuel available or not? He said that the fuel available can take us 2 days, and then after the 2 days, we only have about five hours of reserved fuel. So do you have any contrary view to his, or you are just trying to say that he should solve it because he's in government?
He should solve it because he's in government. Yes, that's the point I'm making. But I'm saying that as I speak to you now, he spoke about 24 hours ago. He said we only have about 5 hours of fuel left to power our generator. As I speak to you now, it's been 24 hours. The lights are on.
Mr. Adomako, to the best of your knowledge, what is the most updated or current information in terms of the status of the energy sector, whether we have enough fuel to carry us into the next 2 weeks or so, while we wait for, the new administration to solidify the grounds, what is the most updated information you have in terms of fuel availability?
To the best of my knowledge, at the time when handing over power to His Excellency John Mahama, the lights were on. Generators are blazing.
Is that enough, Mr. Adomako? Is it enough that you keep the lights on just to hand over power, but the necessary arrangements that need to be in place for the incoming administration to run or transition smoothly is not there? It's not in place. So if you say that when you were handing over power, the lights were on, how long were you expecting that light to be kept on?
I'm sure you saw the response from my minister. As I speak to you now, Sun Power and AXA are running on fuel procured by this by Nana and Dumsor. Sun Power and AXA are blazing now on fuel that were procured by the Nana and Dumsor government. They should just fix the problem if they realize there's any problem, which we don't see, because we left a very robust energy sector with the light on. No blame game. Nobody should start any conversation about blame game. Nobody. If the light goes up now, nobody should blame Nana Dumsor. It's not in power.
Okay. Per what you know, you say that Sen and AXA are running on fuel procured by the Nana Dumsor government. How many days can the plant run on that fuel that you procured?
I don't have that particular data. I'm just referring to the response from my minister to Mr. Jinabo's point that we don't have fuel. And the minister then came out to say that as of now, the Sun Power and AXA are running on fuel that were procured by this particular the S1 government. Yeah,
I get that. But you were a deputy minister, so of course there's some information that you were you would know. And we are trying to find out from you that yes, we acknowledge that those two plants are probably running on the fuel as you say. But the question is, how many days will that fuel they have last?
That's not a good sound to hear.
Okay.
I get the sense that, the NPP administration have washed their hands in terms of the affairs of this country. You started by saying you voted us out of power, you say we are incompetent, and so whatever problems exist, you solve it. Yeah. But the machinations, like I like to say, aren't available for them to solve the problems.
Yeah.
But
well, anyway, the thing is that he should probably answer the question about how many days the fuel they left will last, But let's bring in Dr. Yusuf Sulemana, who is an energy strategist. Doc, grateful to you for joining us. As my colleague said, there's no room for excuses. What should the government do to fix it?
Morning to you, my good friend, and to your cherished listeners and viewers in Ghana and across the globe. Indeed, it's quite unfortunate that we will have to come back to this point to be battling, as to whether we have enough or we don't have enough. I thought by this time we should have looked beyond that. And I want to also urge the caution that we should tread cautiously. Yes, we do know that we have problems within the sector. It's not a new thing. But as to whether this kind of question that you are asking and they are shifting the goalposts, people are not coming out with the answer. It's just a matter of days that we need to know whether it is a reality or not. But what is clear is that our situation in the power sector is not the best. We could do better. I find it even unfortunate at this moment that we have to be using liquid-based fuel to be generating power after even knowing what we have in terms of the gas availability within our shores. I've always called for the fact that I think Ghanaians don't deserve even explanation and counter-explanations. We need to just make sure that we don't have erratic power supply. There shouldn't be any to do survive. And I think now the buck stops with the incoming administration. Yes, there are issues, and I want to trust that they have the ability to be able to do that. And I want to also just urge them that they shouldn't try to fall into the trap that NPP did. Because if you notice, just NPP won power. They started the trajectory of excess capacity, lambasting the previous government. And only it was a matter of time, that few years down the line, that we knew that there's nothing like excess capacity if it cannot help us. If you have over 5,000 capacity and you have them, so then we shouldn't even talk about excess capacity. other than that, you are just insulting the intelligence of, the sensibility of Ghanaians. So going forward, we need to look for solutions. What I'll urge is that immediately we are in firefighting mode, and we should try to keep to that trajectory temporarily, and then we look for medium to long-term solutions, which I've always advocated. But the kind of firefighting mode that we are in, we can't be there, especially when people are capable of paying for the fuel, for the power supply to them, and they don't have the power simply because of unavailability of the power. And I just listened briefly to my previous presenter, Nana. If you notice our generation mix, as we have it now, you notice that thermal mix, is a force to reckon with, and we know where the sources are coming from. And I can tell you authority that, as always mentioned, that we are sitting on tenterhooks. Because if you notice what is available at our maximum period and what we are capable of giving during the maximum period in terms of our power, our installations, there's no reserve. So why do we leave ourselves to be at this point in position, at this point in time? However, the thing has happened. So now I will ask the new administration to tackle the bull by the horn.
Right.
And I believe credible that they can do that. And what they can do is to at least come out with a contingency measure to be able to procure whatever is required to be procured at this moment in time, once we look for long-term solutions. And I believe the long-term solutions is to get our gas infrastructure available to ensure that we have ready gas supply to be able to power plant, to be able to power this power plant. Once we think about other renewables,
All right. Grateful to you. But Sudi, what you have an?
I do wanted to find out. Nana Mwesi was saying that we need approximately $8 to $9 million to fix the issues that we have. In your expert opinion, is this doable? Where will we even start from?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one. I always believe that it's not unsurmountable. It's overcomable. What we need to do is to just ensure that to keep the uptime of the running plants. We are in firefighting mode, undoubtedly. Right. Make sure that we have uptime on the plant that is currently running, Ghana Gas and other. And if there's any maintenance, if it is not a corrective maintenance and it is preventive, let's plan it so that it doesn't affect the grid. Right. Whilst we try to look for long-term solutions. Other than that, it's just going to be difficult going forward. Yeah.
Thank you. That's Dr. Yusuf Sulemana, energy strategist, joining us to put the story in perspective.
Quite interesting. Someone who's watching us is called Kofiaka in Takwa. He says, Kojo, you should have asked the outgone deputy energy minister, saying he doesn't know the amount of fuel currently in the nation. If he was still in power as of yesterday, that the swearing was done. Is he trying to say he wouldn't have known the amount of fuel?
You know what I hear? I'm not in power. I'm not answerable to you.
No, but he dropped the call when I asked that question. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
The fuel that he left, how many days is it going to last? And he dropped the call.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Let's now move on to our major discussion where we're looking at the 4 thematic areas that the John Mahama government says he will develop the nation around. Ahead of the macroeconomic conditions, ahead of improving the investment or business environment to then open the country up to business.
Accountability and corruption. Fight against corruption, and everything in between. But we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll get into that story. Please stay.
By voting as you did on December 7th, the Ghanaian people conveyed a powerful message, yet often overlooked by us politicians. This message was powerfully emphasized by a giant of American political history, President Ronald Reagan, when he declared at his inauguration some 40 years ago that governments have no power except that granted by the people. While Ghanaians take great pride in our thriving democracy, they are deeply dissatisfied with the quality of governance over the years and have openly voiced that dissatisfaction through the decisive actions that they undertake at the elections. Our people also understand that democracy is not just a token adorned with periodic elections followed by pomp and pageantry with the establishment of a new government. They expect that if democracy is celebrated as a superior means of governance, then its outcomes must be more tangible and benefit them in their individual lives. Any honest introspection and reflection on the pulse of our nation would reveal that many within our population do not feel that they have benefited from or partaking in this democratic dividend. Where people buffeted by severe economic crisis and hardships, and in the last few years, we have lurched from crisis to crisis. But there is hope on the horizon. Actions have always spoken louder than words. With that in mind, I have entered into a covenant with you, the good people of Ghana, in which I have enumerated 26 actions that I'll take within my first 120 days. There is reason for hope, and there is every reason for hope. But we must also have faith, because faith empowers us to trust the things that will happen. With faith, you believe what you know, and that is why we need faith to be able to achieve our reset. We need a reset with the faith we have in our country and our leadership. We need a reset with the faith we have in our institutions. We need a reset with our faith in our dear nation, Ghana. And by that, I mean in all of us, because all of us are Ghana. You are Ghana, and I am Ghana. All of you seated here today, Ghanaian citizens, you are Ghana. The people who you are with or near you as you watch this on television, in your homes, or listen on radio, or follow on social media are what we call Ghana. I ask that we enter into the covenant with the Ghana we all love and the good people of our country who make up this dear nation. And I ask that you envision a Ghana that you want to live in, a Ghana that you want to leave behind to your children and your grandchildren. What can you do to help build that better Ghana that we all strive for? What behaviors, what attitudes and mindsets can we reset? We need a reset, and we have faith in Ghana's ability to overcome, excel, and be so successful with this reset that it will be difficult to imagine a time when that was not the case. As we stand at this momentous crossroads in our nation's history, I am honored and humbled to accept the mantle of the President of the Republic of Ghana. Today we celebrate a new administration and herald an unprecedented era of opportunity and transformation. I'll be decisive and swift in my actions. We'll focus our initial efforts on 4 critical areas. The first is economic restoration and stabilization of the macroeconomic environment. The second is the improvement of the business and investment environment to ensure that Ghana is once again open for business. The third is governance and constitutional reforms. And the final, but not the least, is accountability and the fight against corruption.
So that was the President, John Mahama, delivering his speech at that inaugural ceremony at the Black Star Square on Tuesday. We have in studio Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. She's aide to the President, and she says we should just call her by that. I mean, we shouldn't add any more, but yeah. For the next few weeks, she's aide, but maybe after the next few weeks, she'll be good. Okay. We're also joined via Zoom by Dr. Arthur Kennedy. He is a medical, practitioner and a known face in Ghana's politics. You remember him for the book he wrote after the 2008 elections. That popular book, Chasing the Elephant into the Bush. Well, I don't know what book he will write again after this. If that was Chasing the Elephant into the Bush, then of course this one would come with a gargantuan title. He's a physician and a political activist as well. Well, we're also expecting to be joined in the studio by Professor Bafo Ajimantua. He is a former UN governance advisor. And look, it's a complete set for us to discuss what is ahead of us in the next 4 years, and what a way to do it by having an aide to the president himself and the aide herself here in the studio. Joyce Bar Mukhtari, good morning to you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Good morning to the good people of Ghana. Good morning, and this is the day after. Dr. Kennedy is a fantastic human being. Let me just say very good morning to him and Happy New Year. And you know, in all humility and due deference, let me just express our gratitude to the good Lord and to the good people of Ghana. I believe a colleague of mine said something to me a few days ago, and he's a much older colleague, and that in the last 25 years, he has never seen such solidarity from the generality of the Ghanaian populace, okay? Not for any leader in a very long time. And I think it is actually the burden of it that actually keeps me very grounded. And so I'll very quickly say that may the good Lord grant His Excellency John Dramani Mahama the humility and the wisdom to appreciate the enormity of this responsibility.
Amen.
May we not become the government that when Dr. Kennedy starts to give us advice, we will refuse to heed or pay heed to the advice or the cautions of the generality of the good people of Ghana. Look, there's one lesson I've taken from what has just transpired. And when I saw our brother, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, pay such obedience to His Excellency the President yesterday, I asked myself, why do we not standardize respect in our political communication, okay? Why do we not also customize the approach to political campaigning? Why do we not also eschew the arrogance of power that will make you so blind and so thick-skinned that you no longer even feel the little things that pushed you to want to seek to serve in this high office? I know my boss very well. I know his modesty. I know, look, a few weeks ago, something very interesting happened. Now his children are adults. Those kids have gone through a lot because of their father's commitment to public service. But the beauty of it was sitting with them to advise them on their composure, you know, on their life going forward, on how this is going to be another chapter that will also impose very different responsibilities. Don't forget that kids feel these things the most, no matter what ages they are. You know, it tells you how grounded this family is and how grounded he wants to continue to be. The best part is that they are also the age of many young people. And so every young person will be looking up to them. I mean, look at my younger brother, Sharaf. Look at his contributions even in this campaign. And I always say that, you know, Sharaf mirrors his dad in so many ways. Very down-to-earth kid, very grounded, very respectful, very well brought up. It's also testament to the strength of John Mahama and his wife and how they've raised their children, because they've raised them on these very strong Christian principles and using themselves as a model. I think that we will not see certain things that all of us probably will be uncomfortable with and dissatisfied with. I think what is important is that we'll be focusing on the priorities. That is to look at serving the good people of Ghana and serving the interest of Ghana. Never underestimate the numbers that turned out yesterday from across Africa and the world. You know, I met the Minister of Trade from the United Kingdom, and he had been here before. It was the way he expressed such hopefulness. You know, I watched Virginia Palmer, the ambassador of the US to Ghana, and the fact that President Biden made this effort to send a whole delegation to support Ambassador Virginia Palmer. It speaks volumes. You can see that there's a renewed hope. And I think I said something yesterday that we can at least hope again. And I loved how Mr. Mahama paid glowing tribute to the outgoing president and his vice president.
Right.
Yeah. I think that also for me stood out in that whole conversation. Respect for your predecessor, respect for former presidents and former first and second ladies. You know, I think that a level of decorum was established yesterday. Okay. And I hope that we'll take it from that perspective.
So as he said yesterday in his speech, he says, is there a reason to hope? Yes, there's every reason to hope. You must also have faith, because faith empowers us to trust that things will happen. Well, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, but let's get initial comments, I think, from Dr. Arthur Kennedy.
Okay.
Yeah, Doc, it's, well, the dawn of a new day. And that speech that ushered us into this dawn of a new day yesterday, I'm curious to hear what your reflections are on it. I mean, we'll get surgical and incisive with those 4 thematic areas that the president intends to reset the country. But what was your general impression about the inaugural speech yesterday?
Good morning to your viewers. I must apologize. I'm a little under the weather. I have a cold. But the comments by Joyce are very much on point. It was a very well delivered speech. The themes were right. It was right to the point. He hit important points. And I must say that I share the optimism of a lot of Ghanaians. I was in Ghana a few months ago, and at very short notice, I met now the president. He was then a candidate, and we had a conversation about the state of the nation and our future that was very reassuring to me. He evinced a very good understanding of the state of crisis that the country is in, and therefore I am not that surprised at all about the inaugural address. I thought it was delivered well, and as you said, we can go into the thematic areas, but I took away a leader who gets things done. He said, I will act firmly and timelessly. I think that those are very reassuring, and every Ghanaian must wish His Excellency well. The responsibilities on his shoulders are broad, and he started very well, particularly with remarks about Nanado and the thematic areas.
Thank you so much, Doc.
So let's come back to Joyce again. Joyce, today is the first day in office of the president. How is it going to be like?
Well, I'm sure that it's going to start like any other day in the life of a new president. Mr. Mahama literally has had to hit the ground running and knocking on many doors, as I'm sure you all know. And he hasn't stopped working ever since. Beyond working on the speech, there's also the challenges to do with the economy. There's issues to do with governance. You've heard about oral, which is actually an attempt also to reposition our anti-corruption attempts and fights that have so far proven almost elusive, really. The conundrum is that what else do we do? I think that let's see how this initial preparatory work actually feeds into every attempt that other leaders have made to stem corruption. Look, this morning we're going to have meetings from 11 a.m. and certainly the well-wishers have continued to come in their numbers. There's many envoys who've come also to participate in this amazing inauguration, this historic event, who will also be calling on him this morning. So yes, we'll still go through all the courtesies, as I call them, but immediately at 11 a.m., we have meetings in the office. And they start, of course, with some banks, with the African Development Bank, with the Afri-Exim. Look, there's also things going on. And as I'm sure we all know, the economy is actually one of our biggest Achilles heels, you know, how to get a consistent CD really, how to fully work to industrialize. I believe the very first set of appointments, I'm sure you know, had the executive secretary, had the chief of staff, and this morning, the office of chief of staff will also be engaging largely on the conversation that you were having just before I walked in. There's a huge outstanding payment, I think, in the regions of almost $90 million, really, to go to West African Gas Pipeline Company Limited. So these are all very, very urgent things that demand immediate attention. And so these are not things you can hold off even for the next few hours. So yes, today we will have very, very normal meetings. We'll have very serious engagements, all with a view to unraveling what is and what is not. The transition work is almost coming to an end. I've seen many of the notes, and the story is the same everywhere. You see millions of dollars that have come in. You come to the next page and work remains undone. And you come to the challenges and they say inadequate funding, literally everywhere, across board. It is why he spoke also to the 4 areas of great concern. The first one about economic restoration. Yeah. He didn't say improvements to the economy, etc. No, economic restoration for good reason. The next thing to do with improving the business environment and climate. And when you watch the approach of all the high commissioners and the ambassadors, each conversation tells you the challenges to do with the business climate, the caustic business environment, the kickbacks, the corruption, the lack of accountability, how people just cancel and abrogate contracts with no explanations given, nothing whatsoever. We all remember the spat about PDS, a very public spat that was largely, as a result of clanism and inability even to share the proceeds of what was to come. Ghana lost $12 million in that process. There are certain parts of this history that I pray we never have to experience again. And I hope that with the new dawn, with the new leadership, we can actually shut the door on these ones. No government will be perfect, but I believe that when people start to feel the impact of what government's policies can do for them, and I always say that, look, beyond data, beyond research, beyond good policies, is also about implementation and how that implementation impacts the lives of the people. Never lose sight of that. Look, if leadership will carry with them the aspirations of the generality of the people, everything will work. You can have a great judiciary, but if the people don't feel the impact of justice, then what is the point? You can have a very fair government in place. If that fairness does not translate into the lives of people, forget it. Even if the economy is good and the few people who benefit from it are the only ones who think it is good because it does not dovetail the lives of other people, then forget it. There are some key things. Look, when people are hungry and you go and put an empty facility 10 meters away and call it part of Agenda 111, it's a waste of resources. Okay. Because if it doesn't impact their lives, it will do nothing to improve their lives. There is a lot of optimism, even across our neighborhoods, in Africa, in ECOWAS, the AU. You can tell that something hasn't been right for a while. Now we are in government. You will now see the full length of the snake. Okay. Because certainly everything now will be laid bare to the good people of Ghana.
I think talking about, sorry to interject, I just want to move the conversation forward. Talking about hitting the ground running, we're speaking to Nana Mwesi, the Executive Director of IES. And of course, I'm sure the issue about the energy sector has come to your attention. In terms of economic restoration, stabilization of macroeconomic environment, energy is at the core of all these things. He says we are looking at approximately $8 to $9 million to fix the problems we need to fix immediately to keep the lights on. How do you react to this? And we're speaking to the past deputy minister, and he says he doesn't know how much fuel the outgoing administration left for us as we speak. What do you know about the status of our energy sector, and how dire is the situation?
I know we are in a very precarious situation. And before I walked in here, actually, I was speaking to the Honorable John Mahama, who's been at the forefront of the Energy Committee of Parliament and has been engaged in some of the work of the Transition Committee, for example, and he knows there's a very dire situation. Don't forget that we are actually producing less gas than we need to feed the thermal plants. So because of that, we are having to import a lot of light crude oil for purposes of feeding these thermal plants. It is also about money and the fact that we owe these huge debts also to the independent power producers. And I believe I heard one of your resource persons who told you about the fact that this actually had absolutely nothing to do really with anything. It is just a challenge to do with lack of payment. Yes. Money is the real issue. Yeah. The question is that if we have money, $58 million, to put in a cathedral that is non-existent, where are our priorities? They inherited the energy sector levy. How did they utilize those monies? Those monies were to be invested in power distribution improvement. You remember the Millennium Compact, for example. And sadly, I sat in meetings with the boss at the Office of the Undersecretary of Trade in the US, and they lamented how inactivity from government, how government's refusal to cooperate, the fact that in the end they had to return for the first time over $160 million to the chest of the US because the money could not be utilized because government failed to deliver on accountability, the right due diligence, and these are matters of public record. So the fact that we have a new government in place is within itself reassuring. There is enormous optimism. I know that Mr. Mahama has actually over the last few days been engaging some of these companies that supply light crude, all with a view to come to a certain arrangement and understanding about how to repay some of these outstanding debts. If we can pay and stem the tide, why not? I believe that there's enormous goodwill, and so we must do what, I think back to the State of the Nation address, where President Akufo-Addo was telling us very brazenly about leaving Dumsor with Mr. Mahama. Very disingenuous, yet knowing very well that the issues to do with the current power situation is about payments that have just not come, that nobody appears to care about, that only the issues to do with procurement are getting attention. So still it's about personal aggrandizement and personal pockets and feeding a few members of this very small family and friends, administration. And so sometimes you ask whether or not it is the case that His Excellency, the former president, has not been adequately briefed. And know that in the course of the campaign, they said very little about energy or power, for example. But remember the propaganda about excess of power. I love the fact that the resource person told you that this has absolutely nothing to do with excess of power, that there's even nothing called excess of power. My sister, if we produce adequate power and distribution is sustained and perfect, industries will grow.
Right.
It will reduce costs, it will improve efficiency.
Right.
This is what power does. In the jurisdictions where they don't have challenges to do with power and distribution, they have no issues. You've heard about the indebtedness of the Electricity Corporation of Ghana. I have heard proposals even from some people who have met with His Excellency President John Mahama that we need to break that company down into two.
Okay.
Let's look at the operations and then look at also the distribution.
Right.
Because maybe the bulkiness of that particular corporation is also a challenge.
But
look at the letter from Gridco,
sorry to interject. If what Mr. Jinapor is saying is anything to go by, we are staring, we are standing on the edge of a precipice.
Don't worry.
How do you intend to actually steer the tide from here?
Every effort is being made to stem that tide. I know that. Every effort is being made. So worry not. Don't allow the enemy to deceive and mislead.
So we won't have Dumsor.
So we will not, yeah.
I am very convinced that we will not return to Dumsor. Don't forget that there's now a sustainable option in place, which is these thermal plants. It is the independent power, because you see, for many years we're entirely dependent on Akosombo, on hydro power, and on the fact that Bui didn't even come on stream. And climate change also makes it impossible for you to continue to depend on traditional ways of giving power to your people. I know that every effort is being made. Don't worry about it.
How much is the debt? How much is the debt in the sector now?
Oh my goodness, it's huge. I've just seen WAPCO alone talking about $89 million.
Yeah.
$89 million,
yes, and
entire debt.
That is just WAPCO.
WAPCO. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And they were even stopped from maintenance, routine maintenance, because there's no money to pay them for the maintenance. Then we have all the others at Sogli, and the Senate, and the many others. I have a tall list. I can even read it out to you.
Yes. I really want to know how much debt is in the sector as of now.
The last time I checked, I think it's huge. In the totality of it, is a huge sum of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we are told that you said there's a meeting with the chief of staff over this.
Yes.
Does it include all the other power sector players?
We have, over the course of the last few months, been engaging these independent power producers over the period. And John Jinapor just told me this morning about Asogli and what they don't have, about AXA, and yes, they are the ones who have not that much to offer. Then there's one called KTTP, which also has a few days to supply fuel, and WAPCO is also outstanding. So yes, there's quite a number of them. And I'm happy that today, considering the exigency and the emergency of the situation, certainly Mr. Deborah's office will be handling this, and I believe that they've been given the task of working to resolve this matter very quickly. Look, Government has enormous resources. The challenge over the few years is that just a few unscrupulous persons very close to the corridors of power have actually sat on these resources. I know that if we are able to rearrange ourselves and prioritize the things that matter, we will keep the lights on. And this time around, I know that Mr. Mahama has his priorities very well in place, yes.
Because the power sector is really quite crucial to all the 4 areas that, that he mentioned.
To everything. Look, even with the economic stabilization, for example, beyond the reckless borrowing, and for that I believe that Parliament will come in very handy, because he has also promised that there's going to be a fiscal act to put a fetter on government's ability to borrow. So in future, before you borrow a certain threshold, you will have to then go to Parliament to seek permission. And the reasons why you are borrowing must be clearly stipulated. We still have the DDEP, we have all the outstanding debts to various international rating agencies. There is a lot in that sector that needs to be unraveled. And I believe that that will be at the the basis of everything will stem with a consistent and dependable economy. Once we can work on the restoration, I know that everything else will fall in place. Look, there's debt everywhere, even with the flagship senior high school. There's huge debts outstanding. For the first time, we heard about WAEC. You know, there's just so much going on. I mean, if we sit here, we can sit here the whole day.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on.
We'll go into the other sectors and then bring in Dr. Arthur Kennedy. But there's an issue that everybody is talking about. And once you are close to the man, we want to have to understand how he sees it and how you see it as well. It's about allowing the president of Burkina.
Oh, Ibrahim Traore.
Ibrahim Traore,
yeah.
to go to him with a weapon strapped to him. A lot of people say, well, we shouldn't have allowed it, but you are close. You understand him better. Does it come to him as so that was a breach of, say, security protocols?
You know, look, we haven't even had a conversation about that, but did you see the reaction of the young people?
Yeah, they loved him.
And these were Ghanaian citizens.
Yeah.
Great. And before they actually even arrived at the premises, remember that there were various security checks. But this is a whole head of state, you understand. And you know, this is also a country with a very delicate history currently. And so there's all sorts of things at play. If there's anybody who can get him to actually even rescind his decision to continue being a military leader. And Ghana has had its own history. And Arthur Kennedy is here, and he was a friend of my half-brother many years ago. I'm sure you'll have a very nice story to tell about that era. Jerry Rawlings himself came in almost pretty much. And I hear this is a man who references late President Rawlings all the time and literally idolizes him and has photos of him all over. If we want a way in which we can encourage him, for example, to go back to democratic rule, I'm sure that this may be a great way, that you can still go to the polls and lead your country with whatever flair and pomp and pageantry you want to do. But yes, I also found it a bit awkward when I saw that he had the gun on his hip and all of that. But, you know, for all of us who are slightly older, we just asked ourselves, oh, really? There's a huge uproar. And you could tell there was a lot of excitement. In fact, he was the one who received the most applause after President Mahama himself. So I do know, but of course, you know that he will not take out a gun and, you know, do anything in a place like that. But I think that was also a bit much. But because he has become associated with this sort of outlook, it appears that he's actually garnered a huge following.
So you don't see it as a breach?
So for me personally, I think that it could have been done differently. But, you know, this was a handing over scene. So I think that there must have been good reasons why he was even allowed to come into the enclave with that on him. So I'm not the president and I don't want to, you know, and, you know, sometimes people can be very sensitive about these things. But I also found I was actually taken aback. You know, we all get used to his photographs and everything, but I think that maybe on the occasion of yesterday, he even could have come in different.
Okay. All right, then. Yeah.
Right, let's get to Dr. Arthur Kennedy on Zoom with us. Doc, you can reflect on the conversation so far at this point, but I do want to find out from you, in terms of the very first mandate of President John Mahama, says he wants to restore the economy and stabilize macroeconomic environments. Do you get, or give me a sense of your thoughts in terms of how reassuring it was and the work that's really lies ahead of them? We do know that in 120 days, we have a social contract with the president and all that. But how confident are you in the first mandate of economic restoration, stabilization of macroeconomic environment, and today being a very first day in office. Give me a sense of your thoughts on that regard.
Yeah, I think listening to Joyce, it makes you concerned because there's been a transition committee, a joint transition committee that has been at work. But it seems that already the pronouncements from former President Nana Akufo-Addo during his final sona and some of the facts that are being put in front of us are a little bit at loggerheads. I think the transition committees must be able to throw things up a little bit. As to the Burkinabe president's attire, it gives some of us flashbacks. But I think Joyce is on to a point that he was very popular with the youth. It goes to the depth of the problems that we have in terms of stabilizing our democracy. People are losing faith in our democracy, and when you have leaders emerging who see the military rulings and Kagame as their role models, then you know that the work of democracy is far from finished and we need to work harder. Now, let me talk about the president's thing about economic stabilization. It is right on point. Economics is the foundation of everything. I heard him say that Ghana is back for business. That is a very good thing. I think that while his speech obviously couldn't go into every detail, I want to suggest that in terms of economic stabilization, the energy sector and accountability as far as funds and bad priorities are all important. But I want to suggest to the president that he should look very seriously at a robust, broad credit system. I think that part of why our economies don't work is the lack of credit. And in the US, for example, about the largest sector of our economy here is housing. And most of us buy houses on credit. So a robust credit system underpinned by data on where people live and credit scores and others will let our housing sector boom, which will be foundational to our economy and will lead to a lot of knock-on effects into the vehicle sector and to other areas. So the president is on to something, but I hope that we can solve foundational problems. I think that agribusiness that you referred to was very good. We must be able to produce at least what we eat. No nation can be great when it imports food that it has to eat, when it has arable land and unemployed youth. So those are very good directions, and I hope that consistent with his language, the presidents will act decisively and timelessly, as he said, to lay some of these foundations. And I'll have general remarks later on about how we can all help. It is very easy for all of us to say the president must do, the president must do. It's more a question of what we must all do rather than just he alone, as if we are just spectators. As Nana Akufo-Addo said, citizenship is not a spectator's sport. We must all be involved and we must be acting to help the president achieve his worthy goals.
Okay, let me come back to Joyce and on that economic restoration and stabilization of the macroeconomic environment. How exactly does he intend to achieve that?
Well, first and foremost, it will first start with what it is, all the efforts that you put in place. In fact, we remember that we'll immediately have a very new finance minister. We're all looking forward to the choice of the finance minister, first and foremost. And that is where the job will actually be starting from. Secondly, we'll also be looking at a team probably at the presidency at the very highest level, advising also on the economy. Certainly remember that...
Where Gusitano is?
Yes, Gusitano, remember, is actually a very key component of job creation, which is another arm of economic restoration, because remember, unemployment is currently at 14.7%. I believe that this is conservative. is definitely higher than that, because considering the numbers you meet who are literally unemployed, something must be done. Because look, the biggest security threat to Ghana today is unemployment. And that is why I come back to the theme of the speech, which is that it resonates with me largely because overwhelmingly I see enormous hope. There's a lot of optimism. People feel a certain reassurance. Now we have a president and vice president who both have children in the same bracket. It is actually the largest demographic of young people who literally are listless because jobs have become a huge challenge. Our inability to fully satisfy and provide sustainable jobs is also tied in very beautifully with the fact that this economy literally is bankrupt. So we live an economy that is actually designated on junk status. We live an economy mulcted in debt. We live an economy that actually has just in reserves about 8 billion, and yet we owe like twice that. Remember that our public debt today is actually about 740 billion cedis. That's humongous.
Sorry, let me take, did you say we have reserves about 8 billion?
Well, that's what President Akufo-Addo said.
Yeah, okay. Then I was going to ask that. So
and that is not necessarily good. You know what I mean? So that is just a drop in the ocean of what we really need. To complete Agenda 111 alone, from what I gleaned from the transition documents, we need 1.4 billion cedis.
1.4 billion cedis to complete Agenda 111.
Of non-existent money. So the issues to do with the economy paint a very dire picture. And if we don't get that restoration right, look, sometimes the goodwill alone translates even into a certain stability. And when he said at the tail end that Ghana is open again for business, I think it sent a very clear message that he had listened to the block of diplomats who have many investors here who left for all sorts of reasons. At a time when Ghana really should be pumping oil like no man's business, we have actually come to a standstill. This is a government leaving office that inherited the 10 and Sankofa, inherited Ghana Gas and all of that. You would have expected that by now would at least have made some great inroads, that at least we should be able to comfortably say that we are not actually struggling to import light crude, because we would then, of course, be processing. These are all things that will actually also feed into job creation. Fortunately or unfortunately, things have not played out as we anticipated. I love one thing about His Excellency John Mahama's inaugural speech. No flowery language, no sloganeering. He didn't waste time on criticizing too much. What he tried to do was to carry the people with him. That I will be willing to lead you on these 4 thematic areas. But I will also need you, like Dr. Akata Kennedy is saying, to support me in that endeavor. It is actually instructive also that today, the Office of the Chief of Staff, the Honorable Julius Debra, and a few days ago, I was actually receiving these presidents with him. And I said, Chief, you know that this is going to involve a lot. He said, don't worry, it'll be different, and I'll do a very good job. I am very optimistic that the capabilities that we have today, the experience we've garnered over the last few years, the lessons we've learned from why President Akufo-Addo, who rode on the goodwill that we didn't even think we could repeat or even beat, you understand, that literally swallowed that goodwill in the space of 8 years. I hope that we will retain it, just because we must continue to give Ghanaians reasons to believe in Ghana. I think for us, that is the most important. And if anybody can do that, look, since the days of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, this is the first time that a political party has been able to garner 57%. It is historic. We must know that God still works in the affairs of men, and that this history must also be the one time that Ghanaians have every reason to hope again. And so on these 4 thematic areas, I know that very soon the work of the transition will come to an end. The formal report will be handed over. It would actually be, a conversation probably for the next month or 2. But what is important is that it paints a picture of a government that was very reckless in a lot of things that they did, especially when it comes to managing the economy. And so I know that the restoration also means the right people being put in place to lead that restoration.
Looks like Ghanaians were looking forward to, or some of the reasons why Ghanaians voted for President John Mahama, because of the promise to abort e-levy and some other taxes that we were saying, nuisance taxes and all that. But it appears the wording has changed from scrapping to rationalizing these taxes. In terms of e-levy and COVID-19 levy, and we've had so many schools of thought about, and betting tax, about, even this morning, I think Dr. Kwame Asasanti was saying, don't scrap e-levy because the country doesn't have enough money, and e-levy is a good way to make some. What is the strategy here? Are you going to actually scrap these taxes as promised, or are you actually rationalizing until the economy has recovered before you can see about scrapping it all?
You see, when you and I talk about e-levy, and we look at it from our perspectives, then our response will be different. When you look at it from the perspective of financial inclusion, in a country where so many banks have largely collapsed, some intentionally, some deliberately, you now know that people do need a place where they can actually transact financial services without necessarily access to a bank. It is why these issues to do with mobile money transfers became such a key component. Talk to many of the international development partners. They all used to, distribute resources through this mechanism. In the end, what it did was that as soon as this levy was slapped on, note that there are key components of this levy. There were many schools of thought about the levy even, the quantum of it. In many jurisdictions, it was just a little above 0.5%. So that people are still comfortable to operate even within. But for us, at the 1.5%, that is huge. Ask your domestic staff today, when you want to pay them through the mobile, they will, oh, madam, can you add the charge? Can you add the fee? So this is also a reason why people are no longer transacting business through. Look, in the course of the campaign, there was certainly a lot of money transactions going on. And now, because you know that polling agents can hold political parties to ransom, many of these transactions were done through these mobile telephony financial transactions. So naturally, we had reason to see some very big inflows. Over the next few months, it will settle again. There is every purpose for which this e-levy ought to be scrapped. Not for us who are on this level and can pay the charges, but for the many who have no other options but to transact business using this platform. And that is very critical. The next thing is to do with COVID. So if we're taking all this COVID levy, years after the pandemic, and we have still not been able to complete Agenda 111, then why do we want to continue to maintain it? My sister, there is a lot of resources in Ghana. And I remember a few months ago, we met the president of the House of Chiefs in the Western region. The Western region is home to the largest deposits of most of Ghana's natural resources. How have we leveraged on development in the Western region? Indeed, the Western region suffered on the multi-dimensionally poor ratings and even went 20% poorer. Most of the investments that came in to greet the reception of Ghana's oil find have all left. What is the reason? Too much bureaucracy, red tape. I work in the industry. I talk to a lot of people in the industry. There is enormous interference from family and friends, from people who have no business even to interfere. There's too much corruption. There's demands for kickbacks. There's also things going on. Look, just having a new sheriff in town alone has actually renewed confidence in a lot of businesses.
So is that a confirmation that you're scrapping the e-levy?
That must go.
Okay.
And you
Thanks for the clarification.
That's why we have this large number in Parliament. The protest was against not just the MPP leadership, but their members of Parliament as well. It means Ghanaians were not impressed by the acrimony of the hand parliaments. And so decided that for whatever purposes, we will vote against not just their leadership, but of course their members of Parliament as well. God did not give us this level of victory for us to joke with it. And if anybody knows that, I'm sure that Mr. Mahama knows that all the odds were against him.
Talking about odds, does that also include betting tax?
Yeah,
I need clarification. So all of them?
All of the taxes.
Thank you.
Go.
Okay,
Wow.
so it's good that we clarified because the commentary on social media.
Remember that there's going to be a huge tax overhaul, and I'm happy that Prof is here. He's a very experienced individual. So he knows. Look, The biggest challenge we have is that what does the Internal Revenue Service do? Yeah. They harass you. They teach you tax avoidance because they are part of the architecture of tax avoidance. You in the media can help us to get the Ghana Revenue Authority to stand on its toes. Have you seen the numbers of people they employ there? Have you seen the number of vehicles they have there? Have you seen the levels of procurement going on? It's amazing. So who is going to be paying for you just to satisfy your pocket, right, and your personal lifestyles? Okay. There are a lot, look, there's a lot of conversations that will go on, and I think that, you know me, if you give it to me...
you keep going on, eh?
But in trying to... in trying to restore the economy and the macroeconomic environment, which of the promises for the 120 days in office will we see now in trying to restore the economy?
Oh, I've told you that the goodwill alone is first. That the business climate is going to be different is second. That we are inviting investors to come
I'm looking at the 120 days. The thing he listed things that he will do in the 120 days.
In the thematic areas he has explained, that we'll look at the economic restoration. I've told you to start with the new financial gurus in town. I don't know yet who they will be. There's a BOG with serious challenges, with large funding gaps. They've actually repositioned themselves. I'm not even sure whether they are still a supervisor, a monetary, or now deposit taking, because they themselves have accounted for some losses. Okay. There are a lot of things going on. There's the exchange rate issues, and we know what the conversations were around exchange rate. Nothing has changed. There must be a renewed commitment to change the face of the economy. Okay. And in the next 120 days, and you see, you watch how Mr. Mahama has used his own sense of agric to attract a certain interest. When you go to Nigeria, there's a new reformation taking place. Maybe we haven't noticed. Many young people are going into agric in beautiful logistical ways that if we were to introduce in Ghana and have government invest, and you see this time, invest in the individuals who have expressed commitment, not just for an agric minister to take 2.8 billion cedis, going around and purchasing plantain that he doesn't know what to do with. That's not what we're talking about, and certainly not about slogans. If we want to make agric attractive to young people, to feed ourselves first, like Dr. Kennedy is saying, and then add value to the surplus, let me tell you, there's one young man I met, very young man, who is into poultry. He says he controls 1/3 of the market share of poultry in Nigeria. Can you imagine what that looks like? That's huge. These are intentional policies by government. I am happy that Mr. Mahama is meeting the Africa Free Trade Continental representative in the next few days. This is another area we can explore. Look at trade inflows between Ghana and some of our closest neighbors. It's almost impossible. It's negligible. Look at Ghana and Gabon. Look at Ghana and Togo. Think about it. Look at the positioning even of our imports, for example. We just import and eat. Look at the import bill alone, millions of dollars. 300 million for rice alone. Why should we be doing that? All the places we visited in the last 2 weeks, we've eaten locally produced dishes. In fact, in Equatorial Guinea, we were served with antelope, and they told us they're there in the forest. That's what they eat. I think if we can emulate this, if Ghanaians will reduce our love for foreign goods, I believe that the journey starts with all of us. Yeah. As I said, Prof is more experienced in this.
Right.
I'm excited by two things. Yeah. Her touch on the Western region, you know, that's where I come from. Yeah. So if you want to, again, her touch on agriculture. Yeah. I'm into rice production. Right. And I've always said that we have what it takes to feed our people when it comes to rice. We produce a lot of rice, you know. If we can focus on eating Ghana rice, the jobs will create and the billionaires will create. I want you to look up for new age agri solutions.
You know, my friend actually is a big deal on agric. So
and see what we do. You know, the production we can, if support comes, we can change a lot of things and create jobs. That's
and major. Trust me, the right kind of support is coming.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's bring in Professor Ajimamba for you into the conversation. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We're just looking at the inaugural speech, Mahama's 120 days, the social contracts that he's entered with. Of course, he said in the first 14 days he'll be appointing his members of cabinet and all that. And we're looking at how he has promised to restore the economy and stabilize macroeconomic environment. I know you've already shared some thoughts on the speech itself Yesterday, I listened to you. But let me narrow it down. First, you can give us your initial remarks, but let me narrow it down to economic restoration and stabilization of the macroeconomic environment and the current power crisis situation that we are facing. How do you reconcile this promise to what the reality is on ground? Your reflections.
Well, first of all, good morning, and I have to say what a great pleasure to be sharing this forum with Joyce, one of the most dynamic women we have in the country.
One of the stars of this John Mahama campaign.
The country.
Okay.
We're not talking about the government, the country. It's a real asset. And I'm sure she's already told us exactly what is going to happen in the coming around 20 days.
Yeah.
And certainly, anybody who has been observing this country for the past 8 years or so will certainly come to a conclusion that a change was a necessity for all of us. And the change has come. And in many ways, I think the change has brought some new hope. And I'm hoping and praying that this new hope and expectation will not turn to be another great disappointment. And the good news for me is that the new president is not a new kid on the block. He was there for 4 years plus, 8 years, right? Including Atamil's period. And he's been away for 8 years. I believe he has had enough time to reflect deeply. And he's coming back to just make a legacy. For me, that is what makes me hopeful. And if I listen to him and his associates and people like Joyce who are with him, I can be hopeful that, in fact, they are more than determined to turn the fortunes of this country around.
Right.
That pleases me. Having said that, well, let me say I'm not an energy expert.
Right.
Neither am I an economist. But I think common sense will tell you what has been wrong and what needs to be done. And the president's statement on finding a way to stabilize the economy certainly needs all the support. You see, one of the things I want to stress now is that when the president says he will do something, whether you are in or out of government, once that policy is a good one, it needs the support of all of us. For me, if Akufo-Addo had been successful, it had been good for all of Ghana.
Right.
In the same way, I'm praying that Mahama will be successful, because if he's successful, all Ghana stands to benefit. So it's not a matter of whether you are NDC or you are NPP or you are nothing at all. I think we need to come together to move this country forward. So one of the things that the president said yesterday, that again pleases me, is his notion of inclusivity. It's important that at this point he find a way to bring everybody together, including the outgone party people. They have to be part of the process, because it's come to a time where all of us should find a way to mobilize our forces to support the government. Certainly, the economy is not the best.
On the lighter side, Prof, I think some of them will disagree with you, because this morning we're just asking for data in terms of how much fuel reserve we have. And the response is more like we're out of power, so deal with it. We are not answerable to you.
Look, for the next few weeks, allow that to happen.
Okay.
Just as for the next few weeks, allow the new government to put all the blame on the outgone government.
Okay.
That's acceptable. But yesterday, I had an opportunity to say, like, and I quoted Colin Powell, the former general of the U.S. military, in fact, chief of staff, in his book, My American Journey, he says, in their service, when you're given a command, you have all the first 6 months to put all the blame on your predecessor. But after 6 months, if you continue to blame your predecessor, then you are not up to staff. You see? So I think that should be the spirit. Allow them for the next 6 months to do all what they want. But at the same time, for them, the seriousness with which they will approach the new assignment for the country is what will matter to me.
Okay.
So certainly, if he's going to look at stabilizing the economy, that's exactly what we want to see, because we know the currency is weak, the cedi is weak. We know we cannot even go out to borrow much. And that is why what Joyce was saying and what the president himself said in his speech, turning attention to agriculture in a new way. Every government that has come to this country talks about agriculture, at times saying it's the mainstay of the economy. Technically, that is true. But that statement has not been matching well with the actions that follow. So if now the new government said they are going to take agri seriously, and there's something that he didn't mention, but I think it's inherent in what he said, and maybe they also don't want to use words that have been used previously. And I'll come to this because towards the 2016 campaign, the new chief of staff, together with the new president, made some statements in the north, which are recorded. They were saying maybe you should go back to Operation Feed Yourself, which was a Champon program. He didn't, this time he didn't use the name. But I think there's nothing shameful about coming out to say we got to begin to feed ourselves, because if you can take care of self-feeding, that alone can take about 30% of our economic problems away. And I'm glad to know you are in rice farming.
Yes.
At Champon's time, for 3 years, Ghana was more than self-sufficient, and we exported rice to Burkina Faso. It's recorded. I'm not just telling a story. And that should inspire us. We should know that we have done it before. So this time, if you want to feed ourselves, not only in the rice, but why should we be importing tomato from Burkina Faso?
Yeah.
Yesterday, when the Burkina leader came, I was very happy. He's one person I admire, and I have to be honest. I adore him. Put the military stuff aside. His ideas, his actions are telling me that there's a new leadership in Africa that is emerging. That's what we want. People who should bring dignity to their people, but not to continue to go and kowtow and be begging white folks on what we need to do. So I'm hoping President Mahama is having that spirit. I'm really praying and hoping that's the new spirit with which he's going to tackle his 4 years in office.
We'll come back to you, but let's bring in Dr. Arthur Kennedy now. He's been on Zoom for quite some time now. Doc, you listened to Prof. and Joyce. What do you think the president should be doing now in his aim to reset Ghana, to make sure he rebuilt the economy that has suffered in the past 8 years?
Well, I think that Prof. Hit the nail on the head. All new leaders say the right things. The question is whether they do the right things. It's been very reassuring listening to Joyce this morning, hitting all the right notes, but as they say, deeds, not words. So I think Prof. Bafwa Jumandia said the first 6 months they can blame their predecessors. I think 6 months is a long time. So it might be shorter than
no honeymoon period.
Having said that, I actually also think that it is a very sad reflection on our democracy that all these botched priorities occurred when we had a parliament. Remember, in 2017, Nana-Addo rode into office with a very large majority, which was shrunk in 2020. And even in the divided parliament, there could have been an accountability and truth speaking. Not too much of that happened. So even while we blame the friends and family for all the malfeasance, we should also say that maybe we could have gotten a little more from Parliament. And I know my friend Babin did the best he could with a divided Parliament that was challenging, but our institutions must work, both for accountability and communication and candor. I think that Ghanaians have a nature of not being candid with powerful people. That is why when people leave office, all of a sudden, all these bad stuff start coming out. Because it is amazing that this same government that is just out of power in such disgrace had a candidate who was on the cusp of becoming president based on the agenda of continuity. It means there's something missing in our body politic about candor and accountability regardless of who is in office. But I think, like I said earlier, the president has very good priorities. Yes, indeed, Operation Feed Yourself is a good idea. It is a disgrace that a country with as much arable land as we have should import food, rice and tomatoes and all those fish. We need to produce enough of that to feed ourselves. And that is the first foundation of a good, strong, independent country. We cannot talk about Ghana beyond aid, and then when we give the speeches, the very next week, we are out there begging for loans and for handouts. That is inconsistent with Ghana Beyond Aid.
Doc, Brace, sorry. Doc, you did mention that you wanted to share how we can help, because the president yesterday said he alone cannot do the job. The task ahead is too big for to be left on his shoulders alone. So how can we help as citizens?
Yes, for bringing that up. How we can help as citizens is that I think that most presidents have good intentions. This president does. When I talk to him, that is the impression I got. He will name people he believes to be good people into a lot of positions. But when they get there, they must do the work to help him. The problem is that people get to these agencies, and then when they get there, they get localized and taken over by private interests that are inimical to the country. And then they start doing their own thing. When they put you as the head of an institution, build that institution and make it stronger. The truth of the matter is that in the last 8 years, virtually all our institutions have been weakened. Then in terms of helping, another way that I think we must be able to help the president is to mobilize the diaspora. When I talk about mobilizing the diaspora, it is interesting that in 2023, the Ghanaian diaspora sent home more money than the IMF has given Ghana. I think that the diaspora is an untapped potential. And when I talk about the diaspora, I'm not even talking about people like me. And I noticed Joyce talked about how Professor Nana Jeno Pokwadima and the president, both young children, some of whom have been educated abroad. I and people like Professor Asare and Stephen Ofure Apia and Max Logan all have very well educated, bright children. So we are just debate. The people we need are not us. I will be dead in 20 years if I'm lucky, but my kids will be alive in 50 years, all on the cusp of becoming doctors. They are young accountants and others with global values, with global skills. Those are the people we must attract to come back to Ghana and believe in the Ghana dream.
Right.
And we can do that with helping them to vote, dual citizenship bill, economic reforms that will make it easy for them to come back to Ghana and invest. When we do that, we would unleash a potential torrent of talent that will help lift the country to where it needs to be. Okay. And finally, since I have Joyce here, let me bend her ear. One area we have that most, my sister, is tourism. Instead of building a cathedral in which we sunk money into the ground, I suggest that we should have revamped our tourist industry all along the coast, modernize our castles, build modern hotels, and inspire the American diaspora and blacks all over the world to come back to their roots to see what happened to the slaves, Salaga Market, at what do they call Asin, where the slaves had their last bath, the castle and other things. These will be experiences that will send the African diaspora back to Ghana to rediscover their spiritual roots and pump billions into our economy. Okay. That is a huge untapped potential.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doc. Just about wrapping up, Prof, but you are a governance person, so I would want you to touch on the bit about governance and constitutional reforms that he seeks to undertake in just a minute for us, sir.
Look, I'm so happy. That was one of the key 4 areas he mentioned. And this morning, as I was coming, I just read briefly the former Chief Justice Sophia Kufuor's comments, disagreeing with Akufo-Addo, who insisted that we have the best constitution. Not true. For the past 15, 20 years that I've been involved in this business, from CDD time, we have been saying that, look, despite the fact that the constitution has stabilized our politics to enable us to have this ritual of elections and takeovers, we are not moving forward because of certain constrictions within the constitution. So I'm happy it's one of the areas. And I think over the time, it's easy. Go to Imani, go to CDD, go to IDEC, and other civil society forums. We have teased out what needs to be. My personal pet area that needs to be reformed, and I'm hitting on this because it will be fundamentally a new area that we have to set for ourselves for our development, is taking decentralization to its logical conclusion. The concentration, I rather say over-concentration of power in Accra is killing us as people. If you leave Accra and go anywhere else, there's no country. It's all dead places. Only because, what? Everything is here. Secondly, young people today can groom and become political leaders only when they join governments. But I think politics should start from the grassroots, which is at the town level, unit level, to the assembly level, where the assembly members can think and plan, and the national government simply subsidizes what they need to do by a fair way of redistributing the national assets that we have in terms of taxation and all. The District Assembly Common Fund is one good area, but it's not all. Okay? So I guess I'm saying that power should shift from Accra to the districts so that people can begin to feel like they don't have to wait for 4 years before they become politically active.
Right.
That their political activism should start from the district level.
Okay. All right.
You know, what's interesting is during campaign time, the person who articulated this decentralization idea very well was Nana Frimpong Akumakuma. Yeah, I listened to her about how decentralization was the way to go. But we do have to go. And Madam Joyce, in your final remark, please, I know that the president couldn't possibly touch on everything in his inaugural speech yesterday, but it was interesting that he left out Galamsey, which I think was a huge contributing factor to his win. In your final remarks, can you tell us why we missed that in the speech yesterday?
Well, you know, I believe that we are all adamant that we possibly can't put everything in. And I also think that beyond everything else that was not in the speech is also the level of thematic areas that he actually gave us. And so you cannot speak even to our economic restoration and not speak to investors coming back if you don't even deal with Galamsey. Know that in most of the mining communities, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of the big responsible mining companies are leaving is because of interference in these areas specifically. It's a huge challenge. So there's a whole conversation around Galamsey that we have yet even to explore. Okay. And I think that is one of it. The second thing also is that it is also because a lot of conversations have taken place about a lot of these things. I know in the next few days that there will also be a group being put in place to start working on Galamsey. Look, it is also about livelihood and survival. That's the part that we all don't talk about. Who wants to go into those pits? For all the videos we've seen, do you want your brother or sister to even be engaged in this sort of thing? No. But where are all those unscrupulous persons who buy these things and take them away? So it is a whole conversation. But the best part is that the Australian ambassador, because you know they are also a very huge mining company, they've offered a certain package to deal and support the government of Ghana. Look, my sister, everything starts with goodwill. I think there's a lot of goodwill. I love what I'm hearing from all sorts of people, even from very strong members of the NPP. They are willing to offer support. You know, there's a conversation we had recently that in the first course of Dumsor, for example, we didn't get any support. It was turned into a political tool. But all of us were sleeping in darkness, including those who were using Dumsor to whip. So let's just remember that there's a lot of hope, a lot of optimism. And you see, that is Mr. Mahama for you. I remember the text message I got from Dr. Kennedy a few months ago. At the time when, the campaign was at this very, very strong, season. But he had time to listen. He had time to pay heed to whatever advice he wanted to offer. And there's many of these people having conversations with him. And I love the offer also from the civil society organizations. Look, beyond sitting on the fence, I've said it. Those of them who are engaged in agric, who are engaged in mining. And I'm happy that those in mining brought a very beautiful document. And they even wanted all political parties to sign on to the document. That they were willing even to lead this exercise. So the back starts with goodwill. It stops with goodwill. It also starts with leadership. It ends with leadership. I hope that we can deliver on the leadership that requires this sort of support.
Thank you so much. It's been a great panel.
Yeah, it has been. It has been really. And I've enjoyed myself. When it comes to the tourist side, please, the roads to the tourist side are not good at all. That's where we have to start from.
And besides that, if I should add, there are some very important private initiatives.
Yes.
Look, there's a Safari Valley.
Yes.
Yeah.
That guy, young man, needs support to turn that valley into a major tourist attraction. It needs government support in any way. If there is something existing, we don't need to recreate.
Okay.
After all, whatever government puts its hand in doesn't work too well.
Okay.
So those who join us for this conversation, we had Joyce Ba Mokhtari, aide to the president, Professor Bafo Ajimendua, former UN governance advisor, of course, Dr. Arthur Kennedy, physician and political activist who joined us via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us to put in perspective the work ahead of this new administration in Ghana. Do stay with us. When we come back, we'll take a look at Ghana's road infrastructure and what is really needed to enhance that sector. We're back in a bit.
Welcome back to the show. Now, let's talk about the road infrastructure in this country. It is one that is needed to enhance the sector, which is critical to the national development agenda. If you look at roads, everything that you do, I mean, we describe some places as food basket, but the roads leading to those places are just shambolic, to say the least. And you need to take a critical look at them. You need to approach them from a different perspective. Who else can we have this discussion with than someone who has been at that particular ministry before, someone whose constituency is where you find a very, very rural constituency, but they've done some fantastic roads when he was in that particular ministry. Isaac Ejay Mensah is the MP for Wasa East constituency and ranking member on the Committee on Roads and Transport. Honorable, in Kamakado to them.
Boko.
Aha.
So, it's a good little convent.
And now you know, in the you're not fi actually the Abba Brofo Kese, what's the Enka Brofo. So, I mean, the past government touted itself as one that has had constructed a lot of roads. But what really is our challenge? That still people complain about bad roads.
Thank you so very much. You want to give me the opportunity to, first of all, congratulate the president for a good work done. Ghanaians have seen what he did before, and of course, they had to give him another opportunity to come in again. And he showed his gratitude. If you saw his presentation, he's a man of vision, he's so humble, and that sort of thing. So I think that having the opportunity to come here, I want to congratulate him and the first family.
Okay.
And congratulate all ourselves, Ghanaians, everybody. You saw what the heads of state that came to the ground there, they all showered blessings on Ghana for making that decision to bring that man back again to reset Ghana. So President Mahama, this Ejay Mensah, your former Deputy Minister for Roads, would want to thank you and congratulate you for your new position. You know, it's in Fanti, we call it Abebio.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's not what has been done before.
Yeah.
And of course, my party, the party leadership, the party NDC, the entire leadership, I want to thank them and also congratulate them for this big fight and victory. And down to the region, the party leadership, and of course my constituency. And I wouldn't want to leave my big man, the Supremo, Honorable Totobi Kwachi, all the big ones in there. I'm here this morning to talk about roads. And I want to take this opportunity, my chiefs and everybody, just to say thank you and a very good morning to all of them. So then back to your question.
Yeah.
I've always had the opportunity and the pain of trying to explain to Ghanaians that the information that is being churned out, that is being sent to Ghanaians, is quite misleading. It has never been true. Why am I saying this? We have in the records, where do you get the records? You go to the various respective budget statements. The records are out there. You know, every year we present budgets because you need money to do A, B, C, D. So you report back. These are the areas that you can have the budget statement. And in there, the records do not show that the Nako-Fadus regime had performed or indeed had built more roads than all of us.
Really?
Of course, yes. If you talk about roads, President Rawlings stands tall. He has close to 19,000 kilometers of road construction, validated, certified, And indeed, that is something that you can show and you can see. And you got all these statements, all these details in the various budget statement. Now, the second one is the performance of President Kufuor during his tenure. He performed about close to 14,000 kilometers of roads for feeder, urban, and rural roads. Then the third group, or the third bit, is the former, the late President Mills, and he, together with President Mahama, performed 15,508 kilometers of roads for feeder, urban, and rural. So you could see that the first one that stands tall is President Rawlings, followed by then President Mills' regime with President Mahama. Now, Nana Akufo-Addo, as at the time that he's exiting, or he exited, because that was yesterday, finally, you know, he's out of the game. The records available in his favor show that he had performed 6,977 kilometers of roads.
6,000?
6,000 for the 2 terms. 6,977 kilometers of roads for feeder, urban, and rural. You can get all these records from the budget statement. That is incontrovertible, that is clear, and nobody can change that. 6,977 kilometers. I've already been talking about it consistently. As at September 2024, we will get the final details of everything in the first quarter of 2025.
But they released a statement, the Ministry of Roads and Highways released a statement of work that they've done between 2017 and even 2022, that if you look at 2022, they did for trunk roads, 14,948, feeder roads, 50,775, urban road, 28,480,000 kilometers. I mean,
so,
and this more than what you.
When you talk about roads,
yeah,
you are talking about verifiable network, roads that can give you a minimum lifespan of 5 years. You don't talk about grade roads. When you grade roads, it rains, you go back again, the road is gone bad again. So in defining road construction, you are talking about bituminized roads, asphalt overlay, concrete roads, even spot improvement road, that is gravel road, spot improvement. For spot improvement, you realize that you do the drains and the gutters and everything, and you ram them with the laterite, waiting for the time that you use the bitumen on them. It has also got some reasonable lifespan, a minimum of 2-3 years, because you are waiting for the bitumen to be applied, where that longevity will be in there. But gravel roads, if you grade roads, you can create the network, all right, but you haven't constructed that road in the sense that we are talking about a road that can live or that can last for a reasonable period of minimum of 5 years. And so what is the chant in are roads, including graded roads. But ironically, you know, when we went into the books, you know, the transition committee, you know, went in there, and I was fortunate to chair the roads and highways, you know, bit with Professor Joshua Alabi. So we had calls to request for information.
Okay.
And they couldn't provide that information. And that is what we've already been talking about. The need for verifiable information is that you need to conduct the road condition mix survey. That is the whole world over. Because you just cannot say, I've constructed roads. How can you prove? And so the road condition mix survey had never been done since 2017. And so we asked them, bring the details. And
so you're saying that the numbers they quoted here aren't true?
They are not verifiable. They are projections and non-validated. Because the engineers there aren't able to validate them. You can validate those details with the survey, the road condition mix survey. What is the road condition mix survey? The road condition mix survey is that what that forms the database is that which is there for planning purposes and so on. They are verifiable. They are something that it is a database that you can go there and say we have an inventorized data. If you talk about inventorized network, it means that which has been investigated, validated, and certified. So as at the time that President Mahama was exiting office in 2016, President Mahama left a good track record of roads. So when we talk about road condition measures, we have that standard as well. We have standard of good, standard of fair, and standard of poor.
Okay.
That's the whole world over. That is the criteria for assessing roads and even performance. So as at the time that President Mahama was exiting roads, for the good side of the road was 41%.
Okay.
41% good and 33% fair. So if you talk about good, you are talking about the international roads, the asphalt overlay, the bituminous road of the international standard. You talk about the fair is that which have also lived for some time. There has been some pothole patching and many things. But if it's the poor, is that with all those bad things and so on. So as at the time that President Mahama was in office, 74% of our roads was motorable. So the motorability rate of that level was 74%, unprecedented. The records are there. They're verifiable. The engineers have certified that, and it's all over. So as we speak now, we haven't gotten any records standing in for Nana Akufo-Addo in terms of his road performance.
You mean at the transition level?
Yes, no,
you didn't get it.
I've always been challenging because the details are not there. They haven't conducted that road condition based survey. That tells you, that gives you the details. So we met them, and they could not provide us with information. All we had was, we have contracted somebody to do that from University of Science and Technology. And in Parliament, I requested for that, only for them to say, it will soon come out, So as we speak, there are no records that show. The goodness of it is that when you come in the full swing, we'll be able to tell Ghanaians that as far as we are concerned, the verifiable, the certified road network of Ghana is 78,402 kilometers. That was bequeathed this government by President Mahama. So we have time now because we have to go into the details to conduct that survey. So we take Ghanaians. Until then, what we have now are projections. The 34 and 24, please, they are projections. They have not been validated and so on. So what we have in his place, in his favor, is where we can go into the budget statement, because for the budget statement, you need to come with a proof. You were given some money.
So what is the meaning of national distribution of road networks by regions? When they say that, what do they mean in terms of the road?
They're just telling you about the network in the country.
Okay. So if our total network is 94,203, what does that mean?
It means that they're telling that the data, the total road network size, is talking about the size.
Okay.
And they have to break it down to the urban roads, feeder roads, and highways, and possibly go into the regions and go districts and community.
So you said by the time you were leaving, it was 70-something thousand.
It was 78,000.
Okay. And this is 94,000.
This is not verifiable.
Okay.
It's not certified in their projections. That is the problem you have. You just cannot get to the Google. What you've done is you're Googling and that's not verifiable.
What I'm using?
Yeah, what I'm saying, the information they're churning out, just Google.
But this is from the roads and highways.
That's what I'm saying. It's not verifiable. They themselves said that it's a provisional details to be verified. And when we met them, and I say it here, and I need them to come and that is what I was telling Ghanaians previously, and it's been vindicated. So we need them to come and validate it, tell us that indeed the 94,000 they are talking about actually has been validated. It's not been validated. So what we can do is that when NDC gets the full swing, sitting down, making sure in power and making sure they take hold of everything, that search will be done. So we go into the details, we'll just get consultants and engineers to go down and make sure that they do the investigations with the standard indications and indicators to be able to verify, to be able to validate the Nana Akufo-Addo's extent of work. But you see, in Accra here, when you are in Accra here, you see the Pokwas interchange, you see some areas here, and recently Legon in that good shape. It's not the entirety of the road situation in Ghana. Ghana has 16 regions. So you need to make sure. You see, otherwise, everybody can say that I've done this, I've done that, verify that. How can you say that President Rawlings, stands tall in terms of road construction? He has constructed close to 19,000. Because they are there. When you go to the records, it's there. Budget statement, they are all there. Why are you saying that President Kufuor was able to construct close to 14,000? It is because of the fact that these details were verified and they are in the data. We call it inventorized data. President Mahama, as at the time he was in office, he had constructed 8,118 kilometers of roads for feeder, for urban and rural. Why am I saying? Because you go to the inventorized data, you go to the budget statement, they are all there. And these engineers are people who come with the details and they give the Minister for Finance, who goes to Parliament every year to read the budget on behalf of the President.
Okay. So what's the strategy in terms of ongoing projects that are not completed? What does your government intend to do?
But everything is clear in our manifesto. NDC manifesto is very clear. So what we will do, no infrastructure, fracture will be that we will have to review, we have to...
That means contractors have to leave site for some time.
Not necessarily. Let me explain here. We have projects, not only building projects, I'm talking about infrastructure projects, many more. You need to conduct an inventory to know whether what they are talking about is even there. Okay? Then that will be reviewed. But based upon the criticality and priority, you want to attend to them. Because all these roads, all these projects were, put in that shape with state money. So that what we are hearing is that they've consulted this, they've consulted that, and so on. Of course, you need to conduct an inventory to know what we have here, which will be validated properly. As we speak to you now, we have close to 110 billion of road commitment contracts that they've given out.
110 billion.
110 billion commitments. Yes, commitment.
Okay.
That the government, narco-funded government, did contracted. So our total commitment. That does not include what has been paid. It is what has been signed, contract that has been given out.
That are yet to be paid.
That are yet to be worked on and paid for. So when you talk about total commitment, you are talking about the entire portfolio of roads that have been given out, contracted, signed, and so on. It doesn't include what is there to be paid. So about 110 billion Ghana cedis. In actual fact, you have about 88 billion with $1.1 billion component and about 177 million euro component. You bring them together, you're getting too close to the 109.1 billion Ghana cedis. That's total commitment. Okay. So then, apart from that, we have the desktop.
We need to be wrapping up. So.
Oh, wrapping up. Yeah. Okay. So then we have the. It is worrying because you see, you get a government that comes in when we had just about 17 billion, commitment, and the whole world, was hearing that. Now they are exiting office when the total debt stock. The total debt stock is the 109.1 billion Ghana cedis you're talking about. And the total commitment is the 110 billion Ghana cedis you're talking about. Can you imagine how are you even going to pay?
Debt. You said debt in the road sector is how much?
The debt is 100 and, let me give you clear here, 109.1 billion Ghana cedis.
That's for work done, but they are yet to pay.
Yeah, that's debt stock. Debt stock.
Okay.
You have to pay.
And then
the total commitment is 110 billion Ghana cedis.
Wow.
And so that is the nature of our state. But honestly speaking, we have a deplorable road network. Maintenance regime have collapsed. That virtually everywhere, the roads are bad. So we are having a government that has as their power, will set a bad, deplorable state, of our roads, and that is the equivalent task of the government to get it done. So I put it on record. Then I go for the Bahumia regime was the worst performing, or worst in the government that, in terms of work performance, they have left us. And it's not true. And the records are there.
In the coming days, we'll get to know much more. Mr. James, thank you for passing.
And because before I get out, we have this our manifesto. Whatever we do there is the policy in there. What we are intending to do is, as I told you, we conduct the inventory and just get to the criticality and the priority roads.
All right.
And of course, maybe the next time when I come, I'll get more details to telling you what we are going to do in terms of our outer ring road that we do, the interregional roads that we dualize them and so on. It's all in our manifesto.
All right. So Mr. James, thank you so much. He is the MP for Wassa East constituency of the Western region.
And the former Deputy Minister of Roads.
Of Roads, yes. Maybe incoming Deputy Minister, incoming Minister for Roads. Let's see how it goes. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. We'll wrap it up here. We are grateful that you could join us here on behalf of the team and Sutia Bochi. Thanks. We'll meet again, God willing, tomorrow.